northern and northwestern Du Bois County. If you've been watching us on our live stream on Wave Weather Now, Louisville's only 24/7 streaming weather channel, we've been on all night tracking these storms back out to the west of us and keeping an eye on what's been happening back in that direction. You'll notice under the tornado warning, Daviess, Martin counties, this is an observed tornado, so this is on the ground. The threat for this is limited in our viewing area. Really, it's areas that would be just across the far western part of our viewing area. So let me show you what to expect with this. And let's go over to Max 2. I'm having trouble controlling. Make sure I'm in play mode, Carson, and we'll get this where I can control the radar view. Nonetheless, as we take a closer look at Max 2, we'll point out that this storm is still about 30 minutes away from moving into the northern and northwestern parts of Du Bois County. I'll point out also that while this storm is observed with a tornado, it does have the potential to produce a decent amount of wind. You're already seeing that as that Boeing segment moves toward Inyo Corner and approaches the Jasper area. So this is the area of most concern. Now the radar reset, we've got lightning showing up back out to the west. Let me zoom into the area of concern, and this is what we'll talk about. The tornado warning that we have has been ongoing for a while across parts of southern Illinois, just north of the Evansville area. Our colleagues out of Evansville have been tracking this storm, and we've been watching it. Again, you can see the inflow notch right there. A lot of lightning still showing up. I'm going to just take the lightning off as we put the radar on. We'll put this briefly into motion, and you'll notice that with the radar in motion, this storm is moving off to the north and east at 60 miles an hour. So it's not going to take a lot of time for it to move through. And in fact, the strongest part of this, as we stop the radar, you'll notice, follow my hand, this is the rotation. The strongest part of that is going to miss Du Bois County. So technically, we're going to see some wind. There's no doubt. We've got plenty of wind rolling in that direction. And I can show you what that looks like by looking at a number of things. Let me just show you the velocity on this. And you're going to see that where we have the greatest threat of rotation. All right. And this Boeing segment is where we would have the greatest potential for strong forward motion of wind. And really, over the course, if you're just waking up with us, over the course of the night, everything that we thought would happen is really coming true. There would be the potential for some of this rotation and the strongest storms west of I-65. The further west you go, the greater the threat. And in our area, the farthest west we go is Du Bois County. The idea is that this will continue to weaken slowly as it moves closer to perhaps Orange County or Lawrence County. Now, you're going to have to pay attention because it still has some powerful wind with it. We still see that rotation. The core of the rotation may barely clip the northwestern parts of Du Bois County, but that wind will certainly reach close to Jasper. You may already be seeing winds pick up. Our winds in Louisville are 36 miles an hour. Let me go back to our radar view. I'm going to go back to our home view, and I'll point out, we'll point out that on the home view, we don't have storms in the Louisville area, right? We have one that's trying to develop across northern Scott County. We're dry, but our winds have been gusty. We've had wind gusts to 41 miles an hour outside of the thunderstorms. However, you will notice that we do have, again, looking back to the west, a number of severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings that continue all the way down in West Kentucky. But earlier in the night, it was a series of tornado warning, tornado warning, tornado warning. So things are easing. It's just taking a little time, and that was expected. So west of I-65, there will be a chance for some of the stronger storms to exist. And I do think we're going to see additional warnings. Most likely, there'll be severe thunderstorm warnings with powerful winds. We have an insane wind field above us. Even the heavy rain will pull some of those down to the surface. We're already seeing strong winds, and we don't even have thunderstorms nearby. With that said, we've also have lightning, and we also have the threat of, at this point, some rotation within that storm to the north. Let me zoom into this. And we'll just sort of pick it apart as it starts to move closer to the viewing area. Keep in mind, the tornado warning has been issued for parts of northwestern Du Bois County, but the storm is not there yet. You can see this inflow into the storm. That's where we would notice that rotation right there, not far from Petersburg, between Servant and Petersburg, moving toward Hudsonville. That's where the greatest rotation is at this point. We look at the rotation, could also see some small hail in there at places. The hail threat's easing quite a bit. This is the rotation wound up. This is confirmed at this point. That's what we know. This storm was producing the tornado that has been observed near Winslow or Oakland City. And that's there you see Oakland City. This storm was moving now at about 70 miles an hour, so picking up in its forward speed. Question is, as it moves to the northeast at a pretty decent rate, has there been damage reported out of this? Has this been a radar confirmed or an on-the-ground confirmed visually? Let's go over to Carson Meredith, see if we can get just a little more information on what we know about this particular storm as it starts to move closer to our viewing area. Carson.
Yeah, Kevin, no damage reports at this point. The Weather Service still calling this a radar confirmed tornado. This is in the rotation, if you will, is still in Pike County, Indiana, which is just outside of our coverage area. I'm zooming in tighter on where that rotation is of concern, and this is very, very close to the Pike County line as you get up towards Petersburg in southern Indiana. Again, all this still just outside of our coverage area. Fellas in the back, if we could take Max 2 full so our folks could get a better idea of where this rotation is. There you see it. Basically, what we're going to have to watch as the morning goes on is you're going to have a big wall of wind as this line of severe storms rolls through. Straight line wind. However, there's going to be these embedded pockets where these storms try to spin. In other words, you get these little bends or kinks in the line of severe storms. That's where we're still going to have a chance for a quick spin-up tornado. And these tornadoes tonight, or as we go through the next few hours, I should say, they're going to be on the ground very briefly. They're not going to be these larger, more significant tornadoes that we've seen off to the west throughout the night. They're going to be these quick spin-ups that are on the ground for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, then they go right back up in the sky. But that's where the rotation is at this point. But again, this is still just a radar-confirmed tornado. That means that there hasn't been eyeballs that have watched this tornado on the ground, and that's not surprising. It's 4:18 in the morning. It's the middle of the night. It's going to be very difficult to see any tornado on the ground with eyes as opposed to radar. So we'll continue to watch this. Let me check the debris real quick, make sure we're not seeing anything new. I'm not seeing any particular areas of interest at this point when it comes to debris being lofted. It just looks like a lot of noise on radar, but there's still that chance, Kevin, for a quick spin up as this tornadic storm, I should say, moves into that northwestern part of Du Bois County. Mainly Jasper points north, most under the gun with this particular portion of the storm.
Yeah, and I think they're going to get the biggest push of wind while the rotation is not far from the Petersburg area here. You're noticing this polygon sort of flashing, just an indication that they're sort of upping the tornado warning, trimming off the backside of that perhaps. When we look at, again, a few things, we can look at the debris detection, which is that correlation coefficient. One area I wanted to look at was not far from the Petersburg area to see. What we're looking for is to see if we can see some of the blues show up. That would mean an indicator that the radar is seeing something that should not be there, something that would be a little more dense, like debris, trees, branches, houses, whatever, being lofted into the air that the radar would see and be like, hey, this is not rain, this is not hail, this is not anything that would be typical of weather. This is something different, and that's what we look for on the debris tracker. Nothing shows up at this point that stands out. That's good news. We do see that this is radar confirmed, meaning it is not confirmed by people that are on the ground at this point. But again, take into consideration the time. We're at 4:20 in the morning. Most people are asleep. If you know people in the path of this storm, north of Jasper, north of Du Bois, folks, you should call them and let them know, hey, you've got a tornado warning nearby. You should probably get in your tornado safe place. Let's go back to the radar view, and then I'll put the velocity on. The radar, again, still showing the inflow coming into the storm. Lots of lightning, heavy rain. There's not a lot of hail with this. We've got several areas of strong wind as this is pushing through. We can see the wind better by looking at the velocity. And we're looking at that, and you can still see, again, now we're moving it further north, so now we're near Hudsonville. Pretty tightly wound there. Let's go back and see if we have an update on the debris at this point. It's a constant back and forth as we look for what could be some debris. We'll watch this area closely. Again, we're looking for more of the whites and blues. We've got a little green showing up there, but that's not too abnormal. So we'll see. We'll see how the next scan works out. But this is clipping the very northwest corner of Jasper, but the Jasper area should be seeing that far push of wind. Let me show you what that looks like again by looking at the velocity, because it's that push of wind that really is starting to come into the western parts of Du Bois County. The spin, the greatest rotation, is near Hudsonville, just outside of Du Bois County. Next in line would be Barr, moving right up toward 231. All right, so if you're familiar with that area, the intersection of 231 and US 50, that would be a zone to watch. That's where we're going with this, all right? And that's going to take it not far from the Halbert area. Could take it up into parts of Lawrence County, Indiana. That's the area that we're watching for the greatest rotation. Still plenty of strong wind within that whole storm. Let's go back to our home view, because it's important for us to realize there's nothing happening across our area at this point. That doesn't mean that we're not going to see some storms here in Louisville. Eventually, these storms get closer to us. But by the time they reach Louisville in this I-65 corridor, especially areas to our south, these storms will be weakening. They're already showing signs of weakening. Yes, we have the tornado warning just out to our north and west, but at one point we had 20 tornado warnings we were tracking. Now we're down to 2, and they continue to move into an area that's not as favorable. We're losing the fuel from these storms, the moisture coming into the storms, weakening as these storms press off to the east. So that has been the thought throughout the day, and that is unfolding. But it does take a little bit of time to sort of power down these storms. It's not a light switch. They don't just completely go off. So that's what we're watching as this continues to move in that direction. They are weakening, though it is a slow process. When we zoom back into what's happening out there, you can see, and if you were watching us over the course of the last several days, we said west of 65 would have a chance, the better chance of severe, and the further west, the greatest chance would be. Well, Jasper and Du Bois County is our westernmost county. All right, so they stood the best chance of severe weather for our viewing area, and that's where we're seeing it unfold. As this continues to lift to the north, the question will be, will we hold on to that rotation as it moves into Lawrence County and as it may clip northwestern parts of Orange County? It's barely clipping Du Bois County. I'm going to zoom into this, and then we'll take a look at the velocity again. So I'll go back to our zoom feature here. Let me just zoom into that particular area, and then the velocity will pop on. You're going to see some strong wind even down toward Jasper and Huntingburg. The good point is we have measurement that will come out of Huntingburg because we have an anemometer there. We can measure the wind. So we'll be getting real-time wind measurements coming into Huntingburg. Jasper, going to get a push of wind. That rotation, we still see the inflow. We have the rotation approaching right the Barr and Reeve area. Let's go over to Carson, see if you have any new information on other things going on. We're keeping an eye on the SkyTrack cameras here downtown. Again, nothing happening. I suspect we're not going to see much here in Louisville until closer to that 5:30, 6:30 time frame, if we see it then.
Right, and this line of storms has been slowing down, or at least compared to what we expected. We originally thought these storms might be moving in around, say, 2 o'clock this morning into Du Bois Bois County. Well, here we are at 425. So this line is a couple bit hours behind schedule, if you will. That's not to diminish the threats. We still, of course, have that tornado warning in place for far northwestern Du Bois County. But I will say, as we take Max 2 full, I got the velocity imagery up, and where you see this pocket of bright, I guess we'll call it a tan or a beige color that's moving into western Du Bois County, closer to Jasper, closer to Highway 231. I'm looking at some radar estimates just above the ground in this particular portion of the line of storms where we're getting some 70 to 75 mile per hour wind gust. Now, keep in mind, those may not necessarily be making it to the ground, but that's the reason why the severe thunderstorm warning continues for for all of Du Bois County. Further to the south, you see that severe thunderstorm warning has been extended to also include Spencer County, Indiana. So as we go through the rest of this morning, I still expect us to transition from that tornado potential, or at least just a small risk for a spin-up tornado or two, to more of a damaging straight-line wind threat. You can see instead of a wall of tornado warnings like we had earlier tonight, we've got a wall of severe thunderstorm warnings instead. But again, the big question is, how long is it going to take for these storms to weaken? But we still have that risk for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, Kevin, moving right into Jasper as we speak. So even if we're not seeing the tornado, we're seeing a pretty good wall of wind.
This storm that we're watching is just 9 miles west of Jasper. So when you look, here's Jasper. The National Weather Service is saying this is a considerable threat. This is a PDS. This is a tornado that is on the ground. If you know folks near Jasper, north of Jasper, wake them up. Let them know. I mean, by this point, they've got to be in their tornado safe place. This is a confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado located, as mentioned, just 9 miles west of Jasper or 16 miles east of Petersburg. This dude is moving at 70 miles an hour to the north and east. All right. That is what we have. Again, we had a little bit of debris that we're sort of trying to find. The latest scan has shown that has diminished, but this would be the area that it is. So tough to pick out. That's what we're looking at. This severe thunderstorm warning, again, continues for a good chunk of Du Bois County. Very strong winds with that. The severe thunderstorm warning continues. The tornado warning will expire. Here's what I don't want to get caught up in is terminology. The fact is the winds are uber impressive with this. When you look at the velocities, and as Carson was pointing out, we've got 70-mile-per-hour winds coming across 231. This is going to do some damage. We have 60-mile-per-hour winds being reported out of Du Bois County near Portersville. All right, and we can scan around and find Portersville for you on that in Du Bois County. But the fact is, this is a sharp push of wind moving through Jasper, moving through Huntingburg, rotation farther to the north. The tornado warning has expired for Du Bois County. The greatest threat of the rotation is north of that, and that is outside of our viewing area. So our focus right now on the push of wind that's moving across Du Bois County. You see Maltersville, there's Du Bois. This will be pushing through, and the winds, I wouldn't rule it out at 70 to 75 mile per hour pushing across Du Bois County. Carson?
They just upgraded this severe thunderstorm warning to a considerable severe thunderstorm warning for 70-mile-an-hour straight-line winds. So I got a feeling we're going to get some reports of power outages, maybe some damage as this portion of the line of storms rolls through, Kev.
Yeah, no question. So this, again, regardless of tornado warning, which just means it's rotating, or the considerable tag of the push of wind, which is what we have. You can see it's bowed out. That is that push of wind that will be producing 70 to 75 mile per hour wind gust across the area. We've got a new tornado warning coming out for Lawrence and Martin counties in Indiana. So this is what we were talking about, simply because of that rotation that was showing up. There we have it. moving farther to the north. So just getting your bearings together, when you look at our viewing area, here's Bedford, that's Lawrence County. This is French Lick. This is down toward Paoli. This is Orange County. And then we get over toward Du Bois County. The warning now lifts up into parts in the very western part of Lawrence County. That is an observed tornado by radar showing not only the rotation, you can see that inward notch there, that's the rotation. We can see that based on velocity as well. So we have the rotation showing up. We have had some what look like debris showing up. Let's look at that. Again, it's faded a bit, something we're watching. And we go back to the velocity to show two things. One, yes, we have the rotation, powerful winds here, noting that that's just outside of our viewing area, but moving at 70 miles an hour. It will not take long to move into Lawrence County. If you have family or friends in Lawrence County, Bedford, Avoca, down towards Spice Valley, call them, wake them up, let them know storms are on the way. A history of producing some very strong winds. When we move the radar down, again, powerful winds, not a tornado warning, but a considerable severe thunderstorm warning pushing across Du Bois County. And that is with strong wind that's passing Jasper and Huntingburg, moving towards St. Anthony and Du Bois. Next in line would be Patoka Lake and Birdseye, working your way into far western Orange County and western parts of Crawford County. So two different things going on. A push of straight-line winds across Du Bois County and a tornado warning with the rotation moving fast up into parts of western Lawrence County. That's the two areas of biggest concern for us. Those are our westernmost counties. This will be slowly easing every mile east that it moves. Carson?
A couple of things that I'm looking at here, Kev. First of all, there has also been a couple of reports of some hail within this line of storms just outside of our area. Nothing severe at this point, but on the northeast side of Henderson, Kentucky, which is right across the river from Evansville, there was some reports of pea-size hail. So don't be surprised if you live west of I-65 as this line of severe storms continues to roll through, that in addition to the damaging wind threat, in addition to the risk for a spin-up tornado, that we have some small hail, likely not severe, but it is something we'll still keep in mind. Another thing we want to mention, we do have a tornado watch in place for virtually our entire coverage area. 33 of our 34 counties are under a tornado watch. The lone exception is Adair County. That tornado watch goes until 10 a.m. this morning, so another 5.5 hours or so. Now, we do expect the severe weather threat to be mostly, if not totally done, much earlier than 10 a.m. But remember, these tornado watches are large in size. They cover multiple parts of the country at the same time. So this tornado watch will likely be canceled before 10 o'clock. But for now, we'll keep that tornado watch in place. Remember, a watch means heads up. That means you have to be prepared for damaging wind gusts and perhaps a few spin-up tornadoes. And that's why all of Wave Country, aside from Adair County, is under that tornado watch until 10 a.m. New severe thunderstorm warning is now coming out. This is going to be for Crawford, Orange, and Washington counties, Kevin. Tornado possible tag with also the risk for 70-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, and again, you're not going to see that be dropped when we have winds moving in like they are. And we've had 60-mile-an-hour winds confirmed out of that storm in Du Bois County. Now our focus, again, just downstream from that, pushing closer to the Louisville area. We've got Crawford, Du Bois, Orange, Perry. That includes Ferdinand. That also includes French Lick and Paoli. The tornado possible tag just means that there could be some rotation with it, but more importantly, it's a severe thunderstorm with powerful winds that can create considerable damage. We're talking wind speeds that could reach 70 miles per hour. When you think of a severe thunderstorm warning, you think of greater than 57 mile per hour winds, and in this case, we're talking 70 mile per hour winds. So we're going to have some issues with some of this wind as it moves closer. Again, it will be slowly outrunning its fuel for these storms to survive, but until they completely taper down, we have our westernmost counties along and west of 65 at a threat for strong winds, and that's what we're seeing for Du Bois County. This is where we're at. It's already past Jasper. It's now moving toward Celestine, Du Bois, Kenya, over toward Patoka Lake and Birdseye, as we mentioned. Let me adjust the radar. I'm going to push it back, and as I do that, you'll see the severe thunderstorm, and the radar sights just changed. You can see the warning being trimmed back, now coming across the rest of Du Bois County. We also have to the north, moving into parts of Orange County, French Lick's included in that, some of those strong winds. And then up to the north, this is the western parts of Lawrence County, the tornado warning still in place there. So when we look at our home view, just to give everybody sort of a glance at where we're at in this, and I'll put the radar on instead of the velocity on this view. Louisville, dry at this point. Back to the west, severe thunderstorm warnings. The only tornado warning we have is outside of the viewing area, the exception, far western parts of Lawrence County. And that tornado warning is still in place for now. Now, regardless if it's a tornado warning or the very powerful winds that are coming with the straight line push of wind, where we could have 70-mile-per-hour winds, still problematic either way. Okay, so whether you're talking low-end tornado or 70-mile-per-hour winds, damage can sometimes be greater with just a push of wind. It expands over a larger area, and that's something to be concerned with. So let's tackle where we have some of these, and I'm going to ask Carson to get some communities together. We're going to track that for you town by town coming up. Let me zoom into it first, and I'll give you just a brief overview of what we're talking about. Notice how far in advance they're warning. We already have parts of Washington County, all of Orange County. Looking to the south, you've got Crawford County already under the warning. Why? Because it's moving so fast. This is moving. Where we have this bowing segment is where we have a sharp push of wind coming through. We can see that on the velocity. When we look at the velocity, you're going to notice where it's sort of bowed out. We can see it on the reflectivity. We can measure it on the velocity. This is why the severe thunderstorm warning is in place. Let me recenter this up. I'm going to push it back out to the west, and you can see that's the area. Du Bois getting hit with some strong winds. St. Anthony. Next is Birdseye, Patoka Lake, French Lick. This will get pushed with a large wall of wind moving in. If it holds together, Paoli will see some strong winds. English, Indiana, Crawford County will see some strong winds. So what we're going to track will be this bowing segment from Huntingburg all the way up toward Windham, and we'll track that off to the east at 70 miles an hour. And let's get some communities that are in line and some timing on what to expect, Carson.
And again, this line of storms is hauling. It's moving at 70 miles per hour. That, like Kevin was talking about, is why these severe thunderstorm warnings are so large this morning. They're covering 2 or 3 counties at a time because these storms are moving so quick. Take Max 2 full. We'll give you a closer look at the exact times of when some of these communities will be impacted by this line of severe storms. Patoka Lake, 442. English and Crawford County, 453. The Troy community, that's right there on the Perry and Spencer County line in far southern Indiana. We're talking around the top of the hour, just before that at 4 a.m. Central Time. Further to the east, if you're watching us in Salem, Washington County, you can expect those storms around 5:09. And don't take those specific times as gospel, okay? That'll be adjusted a couple of minutes here or there. Just giving you that general idea when these storms arrive. Borden, 5:15. Here in the metro, we're looking at around 5:30 for this line of severe storms to roll through. And as we continue to push east of I-65, hopefully the storms are weakening as they pass I-65. But if you're in Madison, Indiana, out towards Bedford along Highway 421, you could be seeing this line of severe storms as we get towards 5:42. On this Saturday morning. We just got a report, Kevin, some power lines down between Jasper and Ireland.
Yeah, in fact, a lot
County.
of Jasper without power is what we're hearing. So Jasper without power, and then Carson just mentioning between Jasper and Ireland, REC is being dispatched a lot of power lines down, and that also includes the Shiloh area, so multiple power lines down. Remember, when power lines are down, don't go around them. They could still be hot. Stay away from the down down lines. If you need to call 911, call 911 to let them know the line is down. Or if you know the number to your electric cooperative, give them a call and let them know. But don't try to drive across or be outside if the lines are down. Strong winds, what we're dealing with. You'll notice that push of wind moving out of Du Bois County and about to move into Orange and Crawford counties of Indiana. This is a severe thunderstorm warning, but it comes with a considerable tag, which just means that winds could exceed 70 miles an hour. This would be problematic. We've already seen measured winds at 60 miles an hour. Here in Louisville, our gusts are at 36, and these storms continue to press off to the east, roughly at about 70 miles an hour. So they're moving at a very fast rate. We still have the warning in place, which is a severe thunderstorm warning until the top of the hour, until 5 o'clock. So we still have 20 minutes left on that warning at this point. So that's the warning that we have in place for the severe thunderstorm warning at this point. In fact, it goes until 5:15, so that'll take us until a quarter past the hour. So that's roughly, 30 minutes still left in the warning. To our home view we go. The tornado warning to the north, I'm going to talk more about. This one comes into the western parts of Lawrence County. So let's zoom in once again to that region, noting that Louisville is in the clear for now. These storms are slowly weakening as they move in. Severe thunderstorm warnings lined up in our viewing area for western Washington, Orange, Crawford, northern parts of Perry County, all of Du Bois County, severe thunderstorm warnings. The tornado warning butts into the western parts of Lawrence County. That's the area I want to go into. We'll kind of take them both because we've got wind in both places. We've got other reports coming in from the Celestine area. We've got large trees blocking a roadway at 400 West and Shiloh Road. We also have power that's reported out in the Shoals, and that's over in Martin County. So that's just to the north, okay? So if we were looking at this, Martin County seeing some of those power outages as well. Western parts of Lawrence County, this storm is moving in. You can see again the inflow to that storm. I can better show you the rotation with the velocity tools we have, but you're going to notice it right there. And that very well will move into western parts of Lawrence County. So you need to be in your tornado safe place, the lowest level, away from windows, and you've got to get there. Stay there until this storm passes. It has a history of producing damage. We have the rotation showing up. By radar, it's a confirmed tornado. We see, in fact, we can just look at to see if we see any debris with this. We certainly see the rotation. Doesn't appear to be anything in the air at this point in terms of debris. Let's go back to the velocity, because in addition to the rotation that we're picking up, we're also picking up this push of strong wind to the south, moving through French Lick, approaching Paoli, and that's the next area. Have we received any information out of Huntingburg in terms of the wind speed, Carson?
I haven't seen any specific wind measurements yet.
Okay.
We'll look at that. I will tell you, Kevin, we've got more power issues in Du Bois County. Power is now out in Celestine. Power is now out south of Shoals, which is in Martin County, but it's close to that Du Bois County line. We also are now getting a report of an electric pole down, or a power pole down, and in the roadway near Portersville Road. That's in northwestern Du Bois County near a trailer park. So this line of severe storms continues to produce damage. It's continuing to produce likely wind gusts upwards of 60 miles per hour, if not higher. And we're also still watching that rotation just outside of our area for the moment, but not by much. You can see that rotation right here in Martin County, Indiana, and this will continue to progress northeastward into western Lawrence County. The tornado warning continues for western Lawrence County until 5 o'clock, so another 15 minutes or so on that. Big picture view, we'll go back to the regular radar, because you notice this is a larger line of storms, and as we expected, we're transitioning away from that supercell concern that had the larger tornadoes we saw earlier tonight across Missouri, Illinois, northern Arkansas. And now we're just looking at a straight line of severe storms producing those damaging wind gusts, upwards of 60 maybe 70 miles per hour, with that chance for a few spin-up tornadoes as well. Let's take Max 2 full screen. We'll kind of go on a radar tour here and show you what's happening now and what's happening next. So severe thunderstorm warnings continue until 5:15 for Crawford County, so that includes English, that includes Marengo. Also for all of Orange County, Paoli, French Lick, you're under the severe thunderstorm warning, as well as western Washington County. That warning lasts until 5:15 for 70-mile-per-hour straight-line damaging wind gust. And you could tell where the worst of the wind is, where you see that backward C shape within the line of storms. That's kind of the push of wind that's caused so many power outages and power issues over the last few minutes. The Weather Service also now keeping an eye on an area in northwestern Orange County where rotation might be tightening up just a little bit. So we're going to zoom in on northwestern Orange County, and we'll check the rotation that the Weather Service is keeping an eye on. Nothing screams tornadic at this point. If we have anything, it might be in this particular area, right over French Lick, rather, just south of Highway 150. And this is going to be one of those nights where you're not necessarily going to get a ton of lead time on tornado warnings, because we're shifting away from those larger tornadoes that we saw earlier tonight to more of those spin-ups that drop on the ground for a couple of minutes perhaps, then they go right back up into the sky. So be on alert for a quick spin-up tornado. Even if you're under a severe thunderstorm warning this morning, this is one of those nights where it won't take long for a quick tornado to develop. And it looks as though we got some rotation trying to develop right along Highway 150, Kevin. This is in northwestern Orange County between French Lick and Orangeville. That's what the Weather Service is watching closely. I wouldn't be surprised if they go with the tornado warning.
Yeah, we'll see how this unfolds, but you can see it on the velocity there. And as we move this back just a bit, the colors will change as we get to the close-up radar. And again, you can just see that forward push of wind, the possibility of some rotation starting to develop across the area. Northwest Orange County, closely watching that for the spin-up of the tornado. You can see the outline of the county there. Thunderstorm warnings continue to come out for central Indiana. That would be up toward Johnson, Marion, Morgan counties. So severe thunderstorm warnings continue, and a new severe thunderstorm warning replacing the tornado warning. So this one, likewise, the potential for very strong winds moving through. And then we've got a tornado warning that's coming out for Orange County, and you can see that one being drawn in. So that's because of that rotation. This small spin-up tornado from French Lick toward Paoli will move toward Campbellsburg and Plattsburgh as it moves into northern Washington County. That's the latest tornado warning that's being issued at this point. So a very, interesting scenario, because you don't see the couplet as typically defined as sometimes we show, but what you can see is there are the markings of that as this moves through parts of Orange and Washington counties. This is a thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. It is not confirmed. It is not one that is on the ground, but this storm moving at 70 miles an hour certainly bears watching just within its forward speed of that. That tornado warning remains in place until 5:15. So that is the one and only tornado warning that we have now across the viewing area as it makes its way to the north and east. The tornado warning previously for Daviess County has expired. Continues for far western parts of Lawrence County. So just that one little notch that you see there as it bumps into western Lawrence County, still showing some rotation near Spice Valley. But the latest one is the one we're watching near Paoli. So if you are in Orange County, northwest Orange County, that's French Lick, that's Paoli, that's Orleans. If you're there, you need to be in your tornado safe place. We do see some rotation. A quick spin-up tornado is possible in that area. We have nothing confirmed at this point, but we have had damage out of all of these storms, whether that's just with the push of wind that's coming through, and you certainly have strong winds now coming into the Paoli area. And I'm going to ask our producers to make some phone calls to Orange County County. Let's see if we can talk to the Sheriff's Department or the Emergency Management or Dispatch to see if there's any damage that's coming in or if they're getting any phone calls. That's helpful at this time of night for us to know what's happening. The radar shows us what we can look at, but it's not as good as a set of eyes on the ground saying, yes, it's actually happening. So that's the confirmation we're looking for. You can see the push of wind where we have this bowing out is not associated necessarily with a sharp couplet, though we do see a little bit of a notch there. And that's why the Weather Service said, you know what? We know what kind of environment we have. We have strong wind shear. Even though we're slowly moving away from the fuel of these storms, this storm is still capable of rotating. We see it. It's also capable of producing that small spin-up tornado. So that's the reason the warning has been issued. We have had reports from across Du Bois County, and you can see new tornado warning coming out. This one is going to be for Lawrence County, so it's going to continue that warning that was just moving into the western parts of Lawrence County. And that's where I can show you the rotation on that. When we look at the velocity, pay attention, and there you see it right there. It's not as strong as it was, but this storm has had a history of also producing damage. So we've got two tornado warnings. Lawrence County, one. That one's going to clip Bedford. The other one we have is just south of that, across northern Orange County, northern Washington County. Those are the tornado warnings that we have. Additional severe thunderstorm warnings are also important to know because they are producing very strong winds across the area. And with those 70-mile-per-hour winds possible moving in now across into Kentucky, so comes right up to Breckinridge County. We also have Perry County, Crawford County, all under the severe thunderstorm warning. That one is capable of producing the tornado, and it's also considerable, meaning we have winds that could exceed 60 to 70 miles per hour. It's that bowing segment, again, goes all the way through there. That's important to know. Back to the tornado warning that we have with some minor rotation. You can see that pushing past Paoli, moving over toward Campbellsburg and eventually into northern parts of Washington County. A number of power outages are being reported out of Du Bois County, Carson.
Thanks, Kevin. Just talking to our producers back in the back. So I've been looking at just doing some radar analysis outside of what you've been tracking over the last few minutes. And this is a solid line now of severe storms. As we expected, congealing into a big line, 60, 70 mile per hour winds. But there's still a tornado threat, not just with what we're tracking in Orange County, Washington County, and Lawrence counties in Indiana, but we do have a new tornado warning in western Kentucky. This is not in our coverage area just yet, but you do see a tornado warning now in place just south of Evansville and Henderson, between Henderson and Madisonville in particular, if you're familiar with that part of western Kentucky. So we are not out of the woods just yet, obviously with the tornado warning for Paoli and just north of Salem, but there is still that threat for additional spin-up tornadoes over the next couple of hours, mainly west of I-65. We still expect these storms to weaken this morning. The question is, how long will it take for these severe storms to eventually weaken? Quick look at some damage reports that we're still getting in, mainly out of Du Bois County. And control room, in addition to calling Orange County, let's call Du Bois County as well, see if they're getting any more damage reports that we might not be seeing at the moment. But what I am seeing is a lot of power lines down across Du Bois County. Highway 231 in particular, just north of Jasper. Power lines are blocking Highway 231. And fortunately, that's all the damage they're seeing is power lines down and trees down. No structural damage just yet. But this line of storms, Kevin, it's still holding on. And the question is, how much longer is it going to hold on before it eventually falls apart?
Yeah, and a lot of people further down the line are like, well, what's this mean for us? I didn't think we have much to worry about. So let's take a look at that. We'll go to the home view and point out that, yes, as this line of storms becomes less supercellular and more linear, we're starting to see the push of wind come with it. And that means areas west of I-65 still have the fair chance of seeing some very strong winds. It could even go past I-65 in Indiana and possibly down to the river. But at this point, we'll keep our fingers crossed that the weakening phase will slowly continue as the moisture that's needed for the fuel for these storms is being limited slightly. And that's the good news, is that we can measure that. We see that. So we know it's outrunning its fuel. It's just a matter of how long it takes for these storms to sort of fire down instead of fire up, right? They've been firing up all afternoon. They reached their peak later this evening, and then here they are during the overnight starting to gradually fade as they move away from that moisture source in the lowest levels of the atmosphere. Regardless, we still have enough in the area where these storms currently are to produce those very strong winds. And in some cases, some rotation. So let me go down this line. We'll zoom in and we'll just work our way down from Bedford all the way to Evansville. Noting sometimes that across our viewing area, these storms will arrive. So I'm going to start with our northernmost county. We'll go to the north and west. This is Lawrence County. You can clearly see where we have the rotation showing up, right? You can see the spin and the reflectivity. I can also show you that in terms of the velocity. You're going to notice this is the rotation point right here. That's why we have the tornado warning that includes Bedford, Abaca. This will be lifting to the north and northeast at about 65 to 70 miles an hour. Fast moving, has a history of producing damage. We're going to go back to the reflectivity. So this is the radar view, and we're going to drag the radar down. Let's take it, we'll just pan it down. This is where we were. This is Lawrence County, okay? That's still under the tornado warning. We have another tornado warning, northern parts of Orange County, northern Washington County. It's not in Washington County yet. It will be moving in that direction. This one is not as well defined. So when I put on the velocity, you're going to notice a couple of things. First of all, it's tough to pick out the rotation in this. There's not a couplet that we would typically look. But what we do see is there is a sharp turn in the velocity image, and that's where we have the rotation that would be possible. Okay, so it's north of Paoli and slightly to the east of Paoli. Strong winds coming in with this. Very strong winds on the apex of that bow as it moves to the north and east at 70 miles an hour. The winds with the system have to be as strong as the forward motion. That's just physics. So if the storm is moving at 70 miles an hour, it's going to have winds with it at 70 miles an hour. Winds still in Louisville at 38 at last check. These winds extend all across parts of Orange County, Livonia, Hardensburg, Indiana, right along 150, going to be in for a punch of wind. Salem will likely be in for a punch of wind. The strongest part is going to be just to your north toward Kossuth. So those, again, areas that we're watching. That's the tornado warnings. Equally as important in this case may very well be the severe thunderstorm warning, simply because of the potential wind speed that these thunderstorms can produce. You know, typically we'd be talking 60-mile-an-hour winds. There's a big difference between 60-mile-per-hour winds and 70-mile-per-hour winds. And that's what's possible with the severe thunderstorm warning that you see. New warnings, again, coming out to the south, now including all of Perry County, parts of Breckinridge County, again, because we have that strong push of wind coming in. It's not out of the question to see some damage with these winds as they push in. We've had a number of power outages being reported from across the entire area of Du Bois County back to the west in southwest Indiana and in southern Illinois and in Missouri, where a number of tornadoes have already touched down earlier this evening or during the overnight hours. Carson, anything new?
I got a report from the Orange County Dispatch, Kevin. Thankfully, no damage damage reports at this point in Orange County. We still have that tornado warning for the northern half, basically, of Orange County until 5:15, and it is now 5 o'clock on the dot. The only thing we have in Orange County are power outages, and Paoli and French Lick in particular. So again, no damage reports in Orange County at this time, just power outages in Paoli and French Lick. The only damage reports we have in our area so far have been widespread trees and power lines down across Du Bois County. But nonetheless, this line of storms still severe. Severe thunderstorm warnings basically across the entire line for 60 to 70 mile per hour winds potentially. As we pan things down further south, there are additional tornado warnings coming out across western Kentucky. Now, these should continue to weaken as they move east. Having said that, these are what we call tail-end Charlies. These are basically embedded supercells on the southern edge of a line of severe storms, and a lot of times that's when you have the opportunity for additional tornadoes to develop because those storms are getting all of the inflow from the south, okay? So we'll keep an eye on these tornadic circulations out near Madisonville and Princeton. Those could be problems for, let's say, Breckenridge and Grayson County within the next hour. But again, the newest information we have, Kevin, no damage reports in Orange County. The only damage we've had so far is trees and power lines down across much of Du Bois County.
And apparently, by looking at the velocity, we are starting to see somewhat of a weakening trend with all of this, which is some good news. Still concerning to see the individual tornado warnings and the pockets of rotation there. But in general, as we go back into a closer view, I'll just show you from what we were looking at to what we're looking at now. Indianapolis just coming in measuring 52 miles an hour, by the way, on the wind speed. What we're looking at in terms of the velocity is showing at least some weakening. And let me just go back to the reflectivity. We'll come back to the scope. Let's go back in here and the scope. And let's look at the velocity on this, and that way I can move it around. So when we're looking at this area here, this is, again, the tornado warning to the north, severe thunderstorm warning to the south. Campbellsburg, push a very strong wind. Wouldn't be surprised to see strong wind in Salem, Becks Mill, Rosebud, Oregon Springs, right along 150. Southeast probably seeing some of those strong winds, too. Power is possibly going to go out for some of these folks in Washington County. This is still a strong wind, even though it is somewhat weaker than it was back to the west. New severe thunderstorm warnings continue to come out, and you can see that. Let's go to it. This is going to take it just north of Louisville, across parts of Scott County, northern Clark County, and you can see that that continues even into far western parts of Jefferson County, Indiana. That is the latest severe thunderstorm warning that's being issued for possibly 60 mile per hour winds. Those have been observed because we've measured those winds in a number of places, really. So Clark, Crawford, Harrison, Jefferson, and Orange, severe thunderstorm warning. Notice the outline in black. That just means tornado possible with that. That's because we have had some rotation within those embedded thunderstorms. So weather radios going off for severe thunderstorm warnings. We are tracking the potential for a few tornado warnings embedded as well, but the bulk of those, again, have shown signs of some rotation, but more importantly, very strong winds across large swaths of areas of a particular county, leading to downed trees, in particular, across Du Bois County and areas back into southwest Indiana. Carson?
Another thing to keep in mind, even outside of the severe thunderstorm potential, is going to be the wind. That's the live view from downtown Louisville. We still have another 45 minutes or so before these storms arrive here in the metro. We've seen gusty winds throughout the night, upwards of 40 miles per hour. We had a peak wind gust around 41 miles per hour in Louisville around 3 o'clock this morning. Remember, a wind advisory continues all day today through about 8 o'clock this evening for those non-thunderstorm wind gusts, upwards of 40 to 50 miles per hour. So that's something to also keep in mind. Could knock out your power in a few spots even before these severe storms get here. And I will say we do have that new warning for Washington, Scott, Clark, and Jefferson counties in Indiana for 60 mile per hour winds. You recall the last hour or so since we've been on the air here on Wave, we had those severe thunderstorm warnings near 70 miles per hour. So we're slowly but surely seeing this line of storms weaken, but it is still going to pack a punch, especially west of I-65. Still getting numerous reports of trees and power lines down really all across Du Bois County, Kevin. That's the main hotspot, if you will, for damage reports so far.
Yeah, and a lot of that damage came from this storm I'm going to zoom into, and this is the storm moving across northern parts of Lawrence County. I'm going to go here and then we'll come back down. This storm is now moving at 75 miles per hour. So it was located just, here's Bedford. The core of that storm was just about 7 miles west of Bedford. Now it looks like it's just north of Bedford. If we look at the reflectivity and now to the velocity on this, we're still seeing some rotation. More importantly, some very powerful wind with this over toward Heltonville. This is moving now north of Bedford, north of US 50. This is producing major wind. Wouldn't be surprised to see power outages with this part of the storm. We have noted that this storm, while it was rotating across Du Bois County, was putting down what appeared to be on radar a tornado. And that's why they tagged it as the observed tornado for Du Bois County. Back to the radar view we go. Heavy rain falling with that, but more importantly, that rotation as it moves to the north and east. That's the tornado warning for parts of northern Lawrence County at this point. To the south, we have the severe thunderstorm warning, and we also still have the tornado warning that moves from Orange County into Washington County, and that will stay in place for just a bit longer. So that warning will expire in about 8 minutes, coming up at just a quarter after the hour. And we look at the velocity for this. Again, noting the very strong wind that's pushing past Campbellsburg. That is intense wind moving through Haley'sburg, just south of Haley'sburg, approaching the Salem area. That push of wind could exceed 70 miles an hour. That's enough to snap some trees, power lines. It's enough to cause some problems, even without the rotation. All right. So just know that even if you're not in the tornado warning, Salem, for instance, you're not, but you could very well be seeing some of the strongest winds like Haley'sburg, who is in the tornado warning. It's possible because those winds are very strong. Let me recenter the map. These storms are moving so fast that, again, where you see that bowing out segment, we'll push it over toward Gibson, New Philadelphia, over toward Austin and Scottsburg, all in the path of the severe thunderstorm warning where we have the forward motion of that wind moving through. Estimated 60-mile-per-hour winds out of Marion County. That's farther to the north, not too far. Well, in fact, it's in Indianapolis. So 60-mile-per-hour winds in Indianapolis with these storms. I'll take it to the home view just one more time. I'd like to give an idea of where we are in relation to where the storms are. And of course, Louisville right now, not seeing anything, but the storms are lined up back to the west of us. It's a wall of severe weather, mainly wind, and it is slowly weakening. So we saw a real downturn in the storms before a recent uptick as they start to congeal together. What happens is with these storms, they interact with one another. And as they started to sort of merge together, we started to see a little more rotation show up. It's a little unsettled at this point. So we started to get a few more tornado warnings that were developing along that boundary. We're still seeing the signs that this may sort of stall out and just sort of move a little slower and rain out. Notice the training motion. As we bend this line back, some areas are going to get repetitive amounts of rain over the same area. It's going to create a lot of water in a few places. While this forward part continues to drag on, that will be the push of the wind. So if I were looking at this point, clearly we have a few things to be concerned with. One's going to be the wind coming out of this section of the storm. That's where we have the current warning. That's where we see it on radar. Additionally, as this moves off to the east, it's this area that may get elongated across parts of Kentucky, producing some pretty heavy rain. That would be a possibility as we roll through the early morning hours. Carson?
Report now, first report out of Washington County. Report of transformers on fire with no power in Campbellsburg, Indiana. That's in western Washington County, west of Salem. right where the leading edge of this line of severe storms is rolling through. Again, that's transformers on fire with no power in Campbellsburg. Now, I will say the only damage reports we've had so far this morning are down power lines and down trees. There has been no structural damage at this point, which is good, but keep in mind, it's still the middle of the night. We got another 3 hours or so until that sun comes up. So it might be a little tricky to get more detailed storm reports as we go through the rest of this morning. Looks like a new severe thunderstorm warning now out for Jackson and Jennings counties in Indiana. And we're still watching these tornadic storms, Kevin, in western Kentucky. They're not looking quite as intense as they were, say, 5 or 10 minutes ago, but there's still an opportunity for some of those storms to rotate south of Evansville. We're showing you those because they could make a run into Breckenridge and Grayson County here over the next hour.
All right, we've got our eyes on that. We're looking at a number of things across the area. The big board shows the warnings that we have, many of those going for another 20 minutes. That includes the severe thunderstorm warnings that we have, the tornado warning, another 5 minutes. That's for Orange and Washington counties. I'll show you what that looks like on the radar. You can see that is to our north. There are 2 tornado warnings we've been watching, northern parts of Lawrence County down into northern Orange and now northern parts of Washington counties. Both areas have had damage, mainly wind damage that have down trees or power lines. We have power that's out in a number of places. Tornado warning continues outside of the viewing area south of Evansville. Almost all of these severe thunderstorm warnings come with the tag that says tornado possible. And that's what we're going to see because of the wind speed potential and the rotation potential. It's still there, even though it's weakening slowly. 70-mile-per-hour winds on these storms will mean business as these storms move ever so close to the population that we have here in Louisville and across southern Indiana. So once these get close to Metro Louisville within the next hour, we're going to be looking at possibly 60, 70-mile-per-hour winds if they hold together, and that could cause some problems. So we're going to be watching that closely. Our thinking is still that as they get closer to this I-65 corridor, they will begin to weaken some. We are showing some minor signs that the weakening process is still occurring, but there are pockets within this zone of severe thunderstorm warnings where that wind speed is still very strong. And consequently, we have the warnings and we have the wording as though it is considerable, tornado possible, 70-mile-per-hour winds. So that's what we're looking at this point along this entire line that's now starting to move across southern Indiana and eventually into northern Kentucky. We're still from Louisville, probably close to an hour away. These storms are moving at 70 miles an hour off to the north and northeast, and for us, it's moving. You know, we'll be looking at this area down here moving in our direction, probably still about an hour from the Louisville area. When we zoom in and show the velocity on this, you really get an idea of the strong wind and the wind push that we have. So let me just put on the velocity here. I'll show the base. Let me go back to it. I don't think it liked that. And we go back to the velocity. And again, clicked on the wrong one, sorry. Let me just go back, and we're going to look at also, there we go. There we go. And you can see that push. That is where we have some very strong winds coming into southern Indiana. Northern Washington County, probably the heart of the wind. New tornado warning coming out.
That's for Jackson County.
And this is going to be just carried over from that northern part of Lawrence County. So this barely clips northern Jackson. Mainly it's Bartholomew, Brown counties. That would be up toward Nashville, Indiana. Again, now radar indicated, losing a little bit, running out of the area of sort of fuel and not as organized. They're moving so fast, they're leaving behind their fuel. So it's like, hey, back there would be my fuel, I'm gone. And these storms are going to start to weaken the faster they move forward. The bad part is the faster they move forward, they still have a strong wind with them because that's the nature of how it works. The forward motion of those storms will push the air, and that air is the wind that will knock down trees and power lines in some cases. So we're back to looking at this strong push of wind near Millport and Salem, Borden, Indiana. That's western Clark County, Scottsburg, Austin, up in Scott County, and Seymour, Crothersville, Freetown, in Jackson County. You're going to notice some strong winds moving in your direction. That's one area of wind concern. Let me go back. I want to put on some of our reports to see if any reports are coming in. When we look at these reports from MPing, these are reports that people like you at home have sent in, and this gives us an idea. It's sometimes tough to get them during the overnight hours because people don't know the damage that's taken place. They're looking out their window like, nope, doesn't look like anything. Let's go back to bed. Or it's like, oh my gosh, sounds like the roof blew off the house. Let's, report it. But you can see there are no wind reports in this view on our MPing. And some of these are reaching just outside of the viewing area. We go back to our reports to see if we have any from the local storm reports from the Weather Service. And even in that area, you can see some of the downed trees over into Du Bois County. High wind gust, 60 mile per hour, I believe that was in northern parts of Du Bois County. That's all we have at this point in terms of storm reports coming in. I suspect we'll be adding to those in a big way. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue across the area. Tornado warning continues to the north, but the one across northern Washington County has expired. Again, slowly easing these storms down. They'll still pack a punch with some wind, but the tornado threat is slowly diminishing and the wind threat will slowly diminish. That is still taking place across the area. Carson?
I'm becoming a little more concerned about this line stalling out. There hasn't been a lot of eastward progression here over the last 15 or 30 minutes. If it's going to stall out, and control room, let's take Max 2 full, please, so I can give folks a clear idea of what I'm a little concerned about is that this line might be stalling out basically along the Ohio River. Now, that could do a couple of things. One, that could increase the risk for heavy rain, perhaps some minor flooding, especially in southern Indiana. And that could also actually work in our favor as the day progresses today. Remember, we're not totally done with severe weather once this first round of severe storms winds down. We still got that risk for more strong storms this afternoon, between 1 o'clock this afternoon and 8 o'clock tonight. So that could, the lingering showers and storms and the cloud cover could help us in limiting that instability, limiting that storm fuel for any potential strong storms later on this afternoon. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on that eastward progression of these storms over the next little bit. Right now, the only tornado warning we have is in our far, far northern communities. This is in northern Jackson County. In fact, the Weather Service in Indianapolis has just removed Jackson County from that tornado warning. So at this point, there are no longer tornado warnings anywhere in our region. A couple of new storm reports coming in.
Let me mention this. We've got out of Bloomington, the wind speed recorded at 64.4 miles per hour. So that was just north of what we're looking at, but that was up in Bloomington. In Washington County, and again, just to get your bearings, here's Salem, northern Washington County, we had transformers that were on fire and power was out in the city. All right, so that happened just after the 5 o'clock hour, estimated by radar, so within the last 15 minutes. So these storms are packing a punch with strong winds, likely 45 to 65 miles per hour in some instances. It's even higher, like we saw in Bloomington, where it was 64.4 miles per hour. That forward motion of those storms enough to knock down trees and power lines. Carson, as these storms start to move closer to our viewing area, we should have camera views coming from Corydon, not far from Borden, up in Starlight, our western Jefferson County cameras. Let's see if we can be ready to aim our SkyTrack cameras toward these storms moving in. I've also asked the newsroom, I don't know who's here at this time of day, but if we have someone in the storm tracker, we'd love to be able to show these storms as they move closer to southern Indiana and in particular the Louisville area. You're looking at a live view. There are no tornado warnings in our viewing area at this point. The trend of weakening that continues, but the forward push of wind also continues. Another note, the tornado warnings that we had out to the west have expired. The only one we have is to our north, and that one is staying out of the viewing area at this point. That one's moving away from us as it goes north and east. This wall of water and wind will be moving across, slowly weakening as it happens, okay? If you've been watching us through the night, and I know there are thousands of you on our live stream because we've been on all night long tracking storms from Missouri through Illinois, Arkansas, western Tennessee, West Kentucky, and now Indiana and Kentucky, central Kentucky. This is where we are. And what we've said is the number one place that we would be concerned with would be our furthest western counties, Du Bois, Orange, Lawrence, southern Indiana would be first hit, and then these storms would drag across parts of Kentucky. And that's what we're seeing. It's playing out in that fashion. The question mark that we would have is how long will they remain intense? Will we be able to see this weakening trend speed up as they outrun their fuel? Frankly, by now, I thought we would already see some of these decrease a little bit faster. You'll notice the new severe thunderstorm warning coming out. It includes parts of the metro in Floyd County. So this is Clark, Floyd, Harrison, and Perry. Again, coming in with radar indicated. Notice the speed. This is an indication that the storms are powering down slowly. And instead of 70 miles per hour like the others, this one's at 60 mile per hour for the wind speed. That's good news. Even though it's bad news, it's good news. You get what I'm saying? We're going to see this push in. So we will notice the winds increasing as this moves in. This is moving roughly, looking for the speed. Don't see it. I'm going to say 55 miles
60.
an hour. 60. All right, we're close. 60 miles per hour off to the north and east. All right, so that's going to put it here in Louisville within the hour. So prepare for some gusty winds. It's 5:30 in the morning, 5:21 in the morning. We've been tracking the storms all night. We've got rounds of storms moving in that will slowly be easing. We're going to stay with you because a lot of folks are up watching for weather information, and we're here to give it to you. We've been here all night. We have Louisville's only 24/7 weather channel, by the way. It's a streaming channel you can find on both the news app and the weather app. If you're on the weather app, scroll down and click Watch Now or Watch Live, and you'll be able to watch that any time of day. Brian Good's on every morning talking about the weather blog and what to expect. We often do long-range forecasts, talk about upcoming alert days. We've had this day flagged as an alert day for a week now, saying we're going to have to watch this. Powerful storm develops. How might that affect us? We're unsure a week in advance, but we're sure enough to know that something big could happen, or at least something big enough to impact your plans could happen. So here's where we are, tracking these storms as they move closer to the Louisville area, slowly weakening. And we're sort of now just in the aggregation mode to see what has taken place. Do we still have damage coming from these storms? Let me go through. We can't tell that by radar necessarily. Now, unless it's a tornado on the ground and we can see the debris, but strong winds like 60 miles per hour, 70 mile per hour winds. While we can see those winds, we don't always know what they're doing on the ground unless we have ground truth. And that comes with a set of eyes. That comes with our storm spotters. That comes with emergency managers of fire and police. Those people help us a tremendous amount during severe weather. Let me zoom in down this line. We'll look at the velocities that we have, noting our northern counties first. So that's where we'll start. Again, you probably see the tornado warning just north of Jackson County. You can see some heavy rain moving through Seymour. Let's talk about the wind up there. We see that with the velocity. And with that, we still have that Boeing segment. That's still powerful wind that's passed by Seymour. It's crossed I-65. It's crossing US 31. It's going to move toward Hayden and North Vernon. It's passing Crothersville. It's approaching Scottsburg. Powerful wind moving through. That's a severe thunderstorm warning. All of these in our viewing area are severe thunderstorm warnings. Some of them come with the tag tornado possible. We do have the potential to see a little rotation still show up. We go down the line. There's still some wind as you work your way across Washington County. Moving into western Clark County, winds will be picking up. Our winds still gusting to 38. Still some strong winds down across parts of Crawford County, passing English but moving toward Leavenworth, moving into Harrison County from New Salisbury to Corydon to New Middletown to Dogwood. All of these communities still seeing the potential for some of that wind. In Perry County, Leopold, across the river into Meade County, Andyville could be seeing some of that wind. All of you are under severe thunderstorm warnings. Here in Louisville, no warning at this point, but that may change. Those warnings are next to us. They're extended so far out because of the forward motion, moving at 60 to 65 miles per hour. Carson?
Update on a few counties. We've been making some calls of possible damage. That, by the way, the live view of the Corydon SkyTrack camera. And there's been some lightning, as you might expect, as these storms continue to move towards Corydon. Quick rundown of various counties that have already seen these storms this morning. Crawford County, no reports of damage at this time. Perry County, no reports of damage at this time. We're still trying to get a call into Du Bois County. You've heard us mention throughout the morning. We've had reports in the National Weather Service chat from Du Bois County EMA that there's been widespread trees and power lines down, really county-wide. And that's where the storms were at their most intense as they moved through Du Bois County about an hour or so ago. So we've got trees and power lines down across Du Bois County. There was that report in Campbellsburg, Indiana, and Washington County of a transformer on fire and power out in Campbellsburg. We also have that damage report, but otherwise across Crawford County, Perry County, Indiana, and Jackson County, Indiana, where these storms have already rolled through, of no damage. So these storms look as though on radar they are continuing to weaken, and the fact that we're getting fewer and fewer damage reports is also a step in the right direction. But Kevin, we always caution it's the middle of the night, so not a lot of folks are up at this point, and it's hard to tell what damage we may or may not have at this point, but things are heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and we're especially getting to a time where more and more people would be waking up as opposed to 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. 5:30, all right, I know it's Saturday, but still, some folks are starting to wake up and they're like, this isn't so bad, let's see what's happening. And that is good news, that the reports are coming down. The velocity on the radar is starting to show that easing, as we've pointed out, but we still are having some power outages. We can tell you that Du Bois County's been hit hard. Parts of Orange County, Lawrence County, have been hit the hardest, even into Washington County, Indiana, where we have seen power outages in a number of those. We've got a new severe thunderstorm warning coming out for Clark, Crawford, Floyd, Harrison, Perry, Washington, Breckenridge. That's the one that you have seen. They issued that at 5:21. It's now 5:27, so it's been in place for 6 minutes. That comes right up to Louisville. So we would be next in line if that holds together. And that's a big if. I mean, at this point, if we're not getting damage reports and we're not actually measuring 60-mile-per-hour winds, that may be the signal that this has outrun its juice, and we're starting to see that fading trend happen faster than not. Let me put the radar back on here. Looking at the radar, even the lightning count, that's something important to pay attention to. That often shows when these storms are sort of relaxing or easing back. 387 over the last few minutes, right within our view. We'll keep checking back on that just to see if that's the case. Again, you'll notice one of the tags on the radar, the debris alert, starting to show up. That, again, is way outside of the viewing area. That's over across West Kentucky. That would be an area where we're showing some rotation and the possibility that the radar is seeing something. Again, that comes and goes depending on what the radar sees. It's not always 100% accurate, and that's important to note. For those watching us from I-65 to the east, it's still a big waiting game. And areas to our south, down toward the parkways. It's still a waiting game for you folks. Going to see some rain, probably going to hear some thunder. Storms will be weakening. Probably going to have some wind, but not as strong as where it is now. For folks that are along and just north of the Ohio River, you will likely experience the bulk of the intensity of these storms. And you're seeing it now because we're already seeing the slow process of those storms easing back down. And it's a process that will take some time. So for those of us in Louisville, so close to that zone, we could still experience some strong winds here. Wouldn't rule it out. 50, 60 mile per hour winds can't rule that out for Louisville. That would be classified a severe thunderstorm. Should there be some rotation that shows up because we still have plenty of shear in the atmosphere, then a possible spin-up tornado. I can't rule that completely out either, but that's all it would be. It would be a spin-up as opposed to some of those longer track tornadoes that we had earlier in the day. Carson?
Still looking for any new damage reports, and we don't have any. Well, one new report just came in, and another one out of Campbellsburg, Indiana, in Washington County. Trees and power lines down on McKinley Street there in Campbellsburg. But again, the bulk of the reports we've had so far this morning in our area have been trees and power lines down in DuBois County and in Campbellsburg in particular in Washington County. We've made calls to Perry County, Crawford County, Washington, Jackson counties in Indiana. So far, so good. No damage reports at this time. And these storms, they're losing their steam. Still very heavy rain. Still gusty winds. We'll keep the severe thunderstorm warnings in place. The latest one goes until the top of the hour here at 6 o'clock. But we're heading in the right direction. Having said that, if we want to get our SkyTrack cameras lined up here, we'll get you to Starlight, Indiana, and control room. If you guys want to take that shot from Starlight, we can. Not going to see a whole lot, obviously. It's still dark, still the middle of the night. But you can see the cameras are already rocking and rolling. They have been throughout the night. We've had gusty winds upwards of 40 miles per hour throughout the night, even before these storms rolled in. Not seeing any lightning at this point. We're looking west from our Starlight camera, and these storms are going to be knocking on the door of Starlight, I'd say, in the next 15 to 20 minutes. In fact, we'll go to radar real quick on Max 2. I'll do a quick time frame storm track along this entire line. It's moving to the east at about 60 miles per hour or so. And we'll give you a closer look at when these storms arrive where you are. So Scottsburg, basically, right now, in the next couple of minutes, Borden 538, Madison 549. Here in the metro, I think closer to the top of the hour, we'll start to see this line of storms roll through. Carrollton just after 6 o'clock this morning. And then Fisherville, you'll start to see these storms there in eastern Jefferson County as we get closer to 6:15. Kevin?
All right, I'm going to ask our control room. I know we've got a lot of sister stations that have been in the path of these storms. KMOV in St. Louis, KFVS in Cape Girardeau, WFIE in Evansville, WMC down in Memphis. If we have any video from some of the damage that has happened overnight, I'd like to be able to show that through this next block of time. And then hopefully, the way the radar is looking, I think we're going to be able to get to Kristen for some news because when we look at what's happening across the area, we do see the decaying nature. And I know Kirsten has some important news information for us throughout the rest of the day. We will reset and then talk about what to expect through the balance of the day in terms of weather. So that's what we will look at. But give us just a few minutes here to go through the radar. We'll look at some of that damage that may have happened out west that we know has happened. It's just a matter of, do we have video of it? So let me walk you through the radar view. Again, noting that the tornado warnings are now limited, just the one to the north that's fading. We have severe thunderstorm warnings that are expiring in places, so that's good news. All in all, we're noticing the decrease in intensity with these storms to the north. You can see that just based on the reflectivity. You'll notice that in particular across the reflectivity and the velocity. So while we have that forward motion bringing some wind into North Vernon, for instance, as you work your way up into Jennings County, farther to the south, it is much weaker. So we are noticing that weakening trend. I'm going to go back and we'll just keep bouncing back and forth between the radar and the velocity. We're going to go down. We'll pan down through this. We've got a new thunderstorm warning coming out farther to the north. That would include Bartholomew and Shelby County, Johnson County, Rush County of Indiana. It's outside of our viewing area. Again, 60-mile-per-hour winds still possible with that. But for us, even this far south, moving through Washington County, where we did have some very strong winds that did some damage across northwest Washington County, back into Orange County. That is weakening just a bit. You can see that. We do note that we have a stronger push here, just south of Valine, down into English. This is moving across far eastern parts of Crawford County, about to cross into western parts of Harrison County. That is a push where we will see some wind. And let me show you what that looks like on the velocity. Because as that moves in, we'll see wind from Palmyra to New Salisbury, possibly down to Corydon. That will be pushing closer to us. I'm seeing from the WFIE, that's our sister station in Evansville, we have it looks like a woodshed that was thrown onto a car. So we are seeing damage from out across southwest Indiana, across Illinois, Missouri, western parts of Tennessee. There have been some incredible storms that have taken place over the course of the last 12 hours. And if you've been asleep tonight, we've been tracking them all night long. And now we're tracking them into our area. But as promised, they are weakening as they push in. We've still had some damage in our westernmost counties, Du Bois County, Orange County, northern Washington, up into Lawrence, possibly Jackson. We do have some power outages. We do have some trees down. You'll notice that wind easing just a bit as you work toward the Ohio River. Let me go back to the north. I'm going to grab the pan feature, and we'll just take this to the north. And you'll notice that wind even relaxing more. Back out to the west. So I think we're in a good place in terms of seeing these storms start to relax. They're not going to completely fade away within the next 5 minutes. This is going to take another hour or two to see them slowly diminish. But by all accounts, we are in the fading sort of phase of this. It will be a slow process for that to happen completely, and hence the National Weather Service keeping severe thunderstorm warnings up. We have the debris alert out toward Evansville, and Carson's taking a closer look at that.
Yeah, we need to keep an eye on this, Kevin. This is near Rockport, Indiana. Rockport is right on the Ohio River, just across Highway 231. If you're familiar with heading to Owensboro, it's close to there. This is kind of an embedded supercell that just doesn't want to go away yet within this line of storms. The debris alert that you're seeing on radar, that might be a false signal at this point, but the rotations there, the storm looks impressive. The rotation, yes, it's there. We need to watch it as it moves closer to, let's say, western Perry County. But that's really the main concern that we have at this time. We're still getting reports of power lines down across Du Bois County. It's really been Du Bois County and then Campbellsburg and Washington County where we've seen all of the reports so far this morning. A lot of you have seen very heavy rain, lots of loud thunder, but no damage, and that's the good sign. But we still need to keep an eye on this particular cell. It's just now, it's basically hugging the Ohio River. Moved out of Rockport just a moment ago. It's in Spencer County, Indiana, Hancock County, Kentucky. Might be an issue, Kev, as we get towards Perry County here by the top of the hour.
Yeah, bears watching. We can see that little notch in it. We can see the potential that it has, and we'll see what happens as we track that a little closer. Still a distance away from moving into the western part of the viewing area. Again, when we sort of scour and look for damage that has happened over the course of the last hour, there hasn't been a lot. We'll go to the reports. We'll look at the wind reports from our MPING site, and again, seeing none locally. That's good news in the sense that we don't see it. Bad news because of the timing, which means that it could be a partial factor in not having those reports. The local storm reports from the Weather Service going to show a few more. And we can see those high winds with that tornado warning that was just north of Jackson County. Trees, transformer down northwest Washington County, northern parts of Meade County. This was non-storm related. That was outside of a thunderstorm. We had some trees down in northern Meade County. Taking the brunt would be our westernmost county as expected, with trees down and high winds. That's where we have the most power outages across parts of Du Bois County. So those are the storm reports that we have. When we look again at the radar view, Let's put that on across the home view. Weakening trends. And let's just take a look at the big board. These are the warnings that we currently have. We still have 22 minutes left on the warning that comes right up to the Louisville area. That would include parts of Clark, Crawford, Floyd, Harrison, Washington, Breckenridge. The tornado warning for Jackson County has expired. They let that go early for Jackson. Other warnings that we have continue for severe thunderstorm warnings, Jackson and Jennings in Indiana. So those are the warnings that we have sort of typed out. You can see what those look like. Again, noting the weakening trend minus the area back to the west of us. That's the, it's always that southern end because it's fueling from the greatest moisture source and the greatest heat source. So this will be the area to watch. And you can really see that also by sort of the tightness of the lightning there. So that will be the strongest, but it too will eventually outrun its energy source, and especially at this time of the morning. So it won't take long for these to fizzle out as they move to the east. These are going to take a little longer to our south, but even those will start to fade. Curious what's going to happen through the rest of the morning and into the afternoon? Let's go over to Carson.
Right, and there's a live view of the Starlight Indiana SkyTrack camera as we continue to watch this line of storms roll through. We'll say not seeing quite as much lightning compared to what we had earlier. We'll come back in and give you a reset of where the tornado watch is because, yes, that is still in place for basically all of us until 10 o'clock this morning. Again, we do expect that watch to be canceled early. Storm Prediction Center likes to give themselves a little buffer in case these storms hang around a little while longer. But for now, we'll keep the tornado watch in place for all of our coverage area aside from Adair County until 10 a.m. on this Saturday. Quick look at our storm chances for the rest of the day today. We've got round one that's moving through now. Then we're going to get a little break in the risk for strong storms. But there could still be a few lingering showers and non-severe storms during that late morning, early afternoon time frame. Then as we get towards 1 o'clock this afternoon, we turn our attention to the south. So we've been watching storms to the west throughout the morning. Then we go to our south by this afternoon for additional potentially strong to severe storms. And again, we don't expect the most intense severe storms later on today to be here in our area, but that will be well down to our south across Mississippi and Alabama, where a very rare high risk for severe weather is in place down there today. We'll take Max 2 full. We'll walk you through Futurecast. We go through the rest of this morning. If we could take that full, thank you guys, appreciate it. So this is 6 o'clock. I will say this forecast model doing a very nice job pinpointing the storms as they're slowly weakening this morning. But you notice as the day goes on, while the severe weather threat diminishes, like we talked about a few minutes ago, this line of storms is going to stall out right on top of us, likely along the Ohio River especially. So we'll still carry that chance for heavy rain, a few thunderstorms throughout the entire day. Then as we get into the afternoon, here comes that big slug of heavier rain pushing in from the south. And for the most part, this afternoon looks to be a heavy rain issue with some minor flooding concerns as well. Could there be a few stronger storms this afternoon? Yes, but I will say the fact that this morning's round of storms is starting to wind down and it's going to stall out nearby, combine that with the clouds that'll hold overhead, that should help to limit our storm fuel, our instability for this afternoon. Nonetheless, we'll keep the risk for heavy rain around, starting around 1 or 2 o'clock, going through the evening, possibly into the overnight hours as well. And then after midnight, we'll transition to just some lingering hit and miss showers, perhaps a few rumbles of thunder. We're still working to get any reports of damage as this line of storms has moved across southern Indiana this morning. Most of the damage has been confined to DuBois County, Indiana, and Washington County, Indiana. We are getting a few reports now, it looks like, in Gibson County, Indiana, which is just outside of our coverage area near Evansville. A lot of damage reports, in fact, near Oakland City, Indiana, only allowing emergency vehicles into that area at this point. Looks like they got hit pretty hard out in Gibson County tonight, Kev.
All right, we reassess where we are. The National Weather Service allowing this warning that's just to our west to expire. So the one that was in place for Clark, Crawford, Harrison, Jefferson in Indiana, Orange, Scott, and Washington, that's going to be allowed to expire. So that's the one just off to the north and of the Louisville area. So again, pointing to the fact that things are weakening. Crawford, Du Bois, Orange, and Perry, that one will allow to expire. So we're starting to see the expiration of these take place even before their expiration times. As we look at the big board, you'll notice many of those winding down closer. Once we get to the top of the hour, we're going to go to the day's news, and we'll take a look at some of the damage that's happened from across the region, because it has been a long night for folks tracking storms, and we have had some serious damage. We have had a number of fatalities. We know of 3 in particular out of a small community in Missouri. Hit a mobile home, and in fact a mobile home area or park, and we know that at least one person there was one of the fatalities. We had others across parts of the St. Louis area that were impacted as well. So a number of negative things have happened with these storms that have been rolling through. For us, we have been on the fortunate side to notice their weakening as they continue to press through. We are starting to see in places additional thunderstorms develop. These would not have the potential to become severe at this point. They would develop and move out of the area, sort of merge perhaps with this line if they stay alive long enough. But the bottom line is by tomorrow, we're going to be looking at a pretty heavy rainmaker across the area. I'm going to zoom back in just to show you what's happening across the area to the west of Louisville. Again, a weakening trend for this. That warning will likely expire as we get to the top of the hour.
Let's keep an eye on that storm in just outside of Perry County. The rotation is tightening up just a little bit.
All right, let's take a closer look. So we go down. This would be it. You can see the purple indicating the possibility of some hail with that storm, and we see additional hailstorms working their way across toward the Owensboro area. But closer to us, not far from Tell City, this is Perry County, Leopold, Tell City. This would be moving eventually toward the Breckenridge County area. This is moving off to the north and east, so Perry County would be in line. When we talk about tightening up, we're looking at the velocity. This would be the rotation that we see, and we can see that gate to gate when we have red and greens together. That's an indicator of where we have the rotation. Winds going toward the radar, green, going away from the radar, red. You get that in one location. It's a clear sign of rotation, so we do have that. If we were to zoom into that area, that is right over a small town called Huff, not too far from New Boston. So wouldn't be surprised as long as we're not looking too far out, meaning we're elevated up because the radar is a little bit of a distance away. They could go tornado warning on this. So that's one we're watching. That certainly bears watching. Carson is keeping an eye on that. And I'm going to just zoom back out and focus on a few other places while we continue to watch that storm over in Perry County. We go back to the radar. Most of the viewing area dry. And that, again, as we approach the 6 a.m. time, has been the case all night. These storms across southern Indiana came in pretty quickly, moving at in some cases 70 miles per hour. And with that came some damage across Du Bois County, northern Orange, northern Washington, into parts of Lawrence, parts of Jackson County. It's been the only damage we've had. And those have been sporadic, most of those in Du Bois County. Power outages, the biggest issue that we've had in our viewing area. Many will escape this with no severe weather at all. These storms that we see back to the west that are still strong will weaken as they approach that I-65 corridor. So our forecast of along and west of the 65 corridor being the strongest, and the further west you go, that would be the most likely. That would put you in Jasper. That would put you in Bedford. That would put you in Orange County. So that is the area. When we look at some of the reports coming in, most of them have been in Du Bois County, and we're getting another one that just came in, reported at 4:30. This was a garage roof that fell off and into the roadway on Greener Road. So based on the radar, that happened around 4:30. And, you know, that's where we had those very strong winds pushing through about an hour ago. Carson?
Yeah, I don't want to keep harping on it, but we're still watching this storm that's about to cross into Perry County. Had a decent look to it. The radar suggesting perhaps some debris in the air, so we'll double check our debris product, make sure we're not missing anything. try a different source here, and that just looks like a lot of noise at this point. And a lot of times, if the rain's heavy enough, maybe if there's some small hail in the mix, our debris tracker might think it's debris, but it's just really a few hailstones or just very heavy rain. So we'll keep an eye on that particular storm as it makes its way into Perry County. Nothing too terribly alarming at this point. And the only severe thunderstorm warning that we have, well, we do have a warning still for Jennings County, Indiana. That goes until 6 o'clock. And then we have this severe thunderstorm warning that covers western Clark County, all of Floyd County, most of Harrison County, Meade County out north of Brandenburg, Crawford, Perry, Breckenridge counties. That warning lasts until 6 o'clock. But again, we have not had too many damage reports this morning in our area. That is not the case out to our west. There's widespread damage across eastern Missouri tonight, southern Illinois. Quite a bit of damage in Gibson County, Indiana. That's just outside of Evansville. Here in our area, we've only really had power lines and trees down, especially in DuBois County. Also some power outages in Washington County near Campbellsburg, Indiana. And these storms do continue to weaken, so we'll see what the National Weather Service decides to do when it comes to issuing any new severe thunderstorm warnings. But we're starting to wind things down, at least with this first round of strong to severe storms. But this is just the beginning of this. Could be a long day. In fact, let me pull up the severe weather risk briefly just to focus on our area for this afternoon. You notice that level 2 slight risk in yellow covers most of our area for perhaps a few more damaging wind gusts, perhaps a spin-up tornado later on today. But our threat is much, much lower than what we're going to see in the deep south. A rare high risk in pink covers much of Mississippi and Alabama today. Our friends in Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, even Huntsville, Alabama could have a very long day of strong to violent tornadoes. That's all to our south. We still have the risk for a few severe storms here at home later today, but that threat not quite as intense as what we'll see in the deep south today, Kev.
Yeah, no question about that. And this morning with the clouds overhead and the rain falling, that helps to suppress any severe weather threat that may try to develop through the early afternoon hours. So we'll watch that closely. If we break the clouds at all late morning or early afternoon, that would mean a greater potential for stronger storms through the afternoon or early evening hours. So that's one thing to watch. Again, you see a lot of the severe thunderstorm warnings being chipped away. We still have a couple more on the big board that will go until the top of the hour. And then at that point, we'll see where we stand. We're going to get you to news regardless, unless there's a tornado warning that's issued. But coming up at the top of the hour, all of our warnings that are currently in place will be scheduled to fade away. And in fact, the National Weather Service is expiring early. Clark, Crawford, Floyd, Harrison, Perry, Washington, Breckenridge. That's this morning here that you see. So we'll maintain these warnings back out to the west and watch those track into the area. But that's where we are. Just to sort of recap where we've been today. On a wide view of the map, and Carson, if you'll just zoom this out, let's talk about the storm reports that we've had today, especially across parts of Missouri and Illinois and West Kentucky. I want to point out that there is ongoing storms already to the south, and those will continue down there for a chunk of the day. The high-risk area is in that zone. These are storm reports that we've had, and if we look closely at these, the center sort of where we had the greatest tornado concentration. This was one tornado that traveled across a good chunk of Mississippi and even went into Alabama. When we look at the funnel clouds, we see, when we look at the tornado and the touchdowns, you can see some of those across Arkansas toward the Boot Hill of Missouri, not far from St. Louis, tornadoes in there. That's where we had the core of the storms doing the most damage on the ground. New severe thunderstorm warnings coming out at this point include parts of Crawford, DuBois, Meade, and Perry. Those were those storms we were watching. That was the one with the rotation, the one with that debris signature. That one's lifting to the north. So that one is still strong. I suspect that will stay. It's a severe thunderstorm warning. So still coming up at 5:57, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come back. We've got the news of the day. We also have weather that you need for the rest of today and the 10-day forecast. Some ups and downs in the whole 10-day forecast coming up. So that, again, is what we're looking at. in terms of warnings coming in. So at the top of the hour, western parts of the viewing area still will be under severe thunderstorm warning. Notice the wind, lots of wind energy with this, and consequently, we had a lot of wind reports, and some of those into the western parts of the viewing area. But notice that dividing line, I-65 points to the west, and that's what we have been harping on, because the fuel for these storms, that lower level moisture, was not available once you cross that line. And while we're still seeing storms back across West Kentucky, Southwest Indiana, even those will begin to fade before long. So that's what we're looking at. Carson, you have an update on the storm?
Still watching that severe storm. This is the storm that we've been watching for some rotation as it was moved across Spencer County, Indiana. Let's check the velocities here. And there's nothing that screams a possible tornado immediately. So that's why the Weather Service opting with the severe thunderstorm warning instead. There's still some very strong wind gusts with that particular portion of this line of severe storms. It's kind of one last lone embedded supercell that's starting to merge with the rest of the line. So we'll continue to keep an eye on it as we go through the rest of this morning. But for now, that's likely only going to be the only severe thunderstorm warning we have once we get to the top of the hour. So again, this line of storms for the most part is weakening. It's slowing down, so that might actually work in our favor later today, like we talked about, helping to keep the clouds around and kind of lower that storm fuel and instability for any second round of severe storms we might see later on today. Kevin.
All right, Carson, appreciate that. For folks that have been watching on our live stream all night, we've had thousands of you watching from the Wave Weather app, all of our social platforms. We want to say thanks. We've been here to keep you sort of ahead of the storms. Hopefully you've gotten some valid information out of what you've been watching. That's what our team does here, to make sure you have the info you need. Sometimes we're able to be on for long periods of time. There are other times we have other things going on that we can't be. Tonight was one of those nights where we knew what would be happening out to our west would impact us at a negative time, and that was during the overnight hours. And here we are coming up on 6 a.m. We've been on the air all night long with severe thunderstorm and at times tornado warnings, especially to our north and northwestern counties. But things are diminishing. We're not completely out of the woods yet. We still have areas west of I-65 that are still dealing with some strong storms. Several of these warnings will expire coming up at the top of the hour, so you'll see those fall off. But still watching the one storm near Evansville and another one across parts of Perry County lifting off to the north and east. When we come back, Kirsten Foot's going to have a recap of the news. Our storm trackers being deployed so we can see what the storms are like when they're moving through Jefferson County. We ask you to stay tuned. We've got Wave News coming up right after the break. Stay with us.
With Alert Day coverage now, this is Wave News.
Good morning. Thank you for waking up with us on Wave Weekend Sunrise. It has been a busy morning for our weather team. Let's turn it over to Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harden. He's been following these storms all morning. Kevin, what are we seeing right now? Yeah, our whole team has been here, by the way, over the course of the last 24 hours. So a big hats off to all the folks that I have a chance to work with, from flagging the day a week ago as an alert day to watching these storms move in today. We continue to track them. The good news is they are weakening as we expected. Along and west of I-65 would be the strongest. We have had some damage, but you'll notice on the radar, southern Indiana, while you're not in the clear because it's raining and we have had some gusty winds, the threat of severe weather is diminishing in that area. The one place where it's not completely faded away would be where you see the severe thunderstorm warnings, the potential for some hail. That's not far from Owensboro. It's across Perry County near Tell City, Leopold. This is lifting off to the north and east. It's going to move into Crawford County. You've got a severe thunderstorm warning in place for this, and that warning will continue to be in place for the next little bit. And that's simply because we have the ability to see some strong wind with that. The rotation that we were watching has eased a bit. We can see that in the velocity that we look at across the area. And yeah, it's sort of just flattened out, but we still have some gusty winds. New severe thunderstorm warning coming out for southern Perry County into Breckenridge County. So let's take a close look at that, since that's just now coming out. That's being extended from that Owensboro storm, and you can see that not far from 231, just past Owensboro.
Now we're back to the 70-mile-per-hour wind. It would be destructive winds as they move in. Davis County, Spencer County, that's Santa Claus, Indiana. That includes Owensboro, Rockport. That's this storm that we were watching. Now that's being extended over toward Tell City, over toward Patesville, Tobinsport. So let me just pan the radar over. And you'll notice that this storm, likewise, considerable damage, 70 mile per hour, still the hail potential up to 2 inches. That includes parts of Breckenridge, Hancock County, and Perry County. That also includes the Hardinsburg area. If that continues, Irvington and Frymire would be in that. Again, these storms are showing slow signs of diminishing. At this point, that would be the one of most concern. Back to the home view we go, just to point out, this sort of tail end is the end that we'll be watching for the potential of the greatest concern, and that's the one right along the Ohio River. Let me go back to our radar view, and then we'll go back to our home view so I can express what we think is going to happen here in Louisville. When we go back to the home view, you'll notice these storms still sit to our west. They still have to move in. They're still a ways away from the Louisville area, even though just to our north, it is storming in northern parts of Clark County. So we do have rain nearby, not severe. The storms we're watching will gradually weaken as they approach that I-65 corridor. Carson, it's been quite a night. We have been watching storms with tornadoes that have produced touchdowns, that have produced damage, and in some cases fatalities across parts of Missouri, moving into Arkansas, Illinois, West Kentucky, Southwest Indiana. The good news is, even though we've got a few warnings and still some concern, these storms are gradually weakening.
And that trend will continue as we go through the rest of this morning before we may have a second round of storms to watch this afternoon. Butler County, Missouri, which is just outside of Paducah, I'd say 25 miles or so away west of Paducah. Unfortunately, we had 3 fatalities as a likely tornado rolled through that part of the region last night. You see that big picture radar view. We mentioned the 2 severe thunderstorm warnings to our west. And I will say the destructive tags that you see on these severe thunderstorm warnings actually are not only just for wind, but for large hail. Look at the hail size with the severe thunderstorm warning for Owensboro, 2 3/4 inch diameter hail. That's enough to blow out windshields. So we'll still keep an eye on those storms as they move further east into our western counties. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue for Perry, Crawford, and Breckenridge counties at this time. Let's take Max 2 full if we can, control room, and we'll give you a live view of the storm tracker. It is out and about early on this Saturday morning. Right now it is on I-65 northbound in southern Indiana, heading towards, looks like the Salem exit there, exit 7 on 65. It's dry in that part of Clark County at the moment, but as Kevin just mentioned a few moments ago, we've got very heavy rain and a lot of lightning in far northern Clark County up towards Henryville, and that stretches across much of Scott and Washington counties as well. Of course, if we get any new damage reports or things like that, we will send the storm tracker to that damage so you can get a first-hand look at what's happened so far this morning. Our alert day continues all day today. We are still tracking that risk for 2 rounds of storms. The first round of storms, it's moving through right now, and it continues to weaken, but we still have that risk for some damaging wind gusts, large hail, maybe a spin-up tornado. We're going to get a small break in that risk for severe storms after 7 or 8 o'clock this morning. Then we turn our attention to a second round of strong to severe storms between 1 o'clock this afternoon and 8 o'clock tonight. I will say that threat is much more conditional at this point, mainly because we're hopeful that these showers and storms will linger through the rest of this morning, even if they won't be severe, which would in turn give us more cloud cover, limiting that instability for later on this afternoon and tonight. Next 12 hours with those storm chances, they're relatively high at the moment. We'll get that little break late this morning into the early afternoon, close to lunchtime. Then we'll watch that second round of strong to severe storms move in from the south. Main issue likely going to be just heavy rain with that, but we can't rule out a few severe storms with gusty winds, large hail, and perhaps a spin-up tornado later on today. Coming up in your full forecast, we'll have a closer look at Futurecast with the rest of your alert day Saturday and look ahead to some ups and downs in our 10-day earliest alert. That and more coming up in just a few minutes, Kirsten.
All right, thank you, Carson and Kevin and the entire Wave Weather team. And the Wave Weather app will keep you in the know at all times. Our team of meteorologists is here to help you stay weather aware. Download the Wave Weather app for free in your app store. And turning to
P2, PRP, you're likely going to see some hail here in the next 4 minutes, closer to 7:27. Shively, 7:31. Germantown, 7:35. St. Matthews, 7:40. And then eventually heading towards J-Town by 7:44. So that's the first hail core that we're watching. Here's the second, where you see that dark purple, or that brighter purple, I should say, right along the Lee Hamilton, right along Interstate 265 there in southern Indiana. And we'll track that particular hail core because that will be an issue for southern Clark County, possibly into Oldham County too. So as we get towards Blackiston Mill, you could be seeing some of those hailstones right now as we close in on 7:24. Up towards Cementville by 7:27, Longview Beach by 7:35, Goshen by 7:39, and then potentially towards Buckner as we get closer to the top of the hour, around 7:48. So severe thunderstorm warnings continue for the next 10 or 20 minutes. The expiration times differ depending on which part of the storms we're looking at. Just know, if you're heading out and about in Jefferson County over the next 15 to 30 minutes, you're going to see at minimum very heavy rain, a lot of lightning, and there's still that risk for some larger hail. We're talking upwards of quarter to maybe even golf ball size hail. Again, we did get some reports from the National Weather Service of golf ball size hail with these storms. We don't have any specific locations for where that golf ball size hail took place. Let me zoom in a little tighter into the metro because I know we have the 10K going on this morning in downtown Louisville. If you know anybody that is in downtown for the 10K this morning, call them, let them know that they've got to get inside. The race was supposed to start at 7:30. That should not be happening as this severe storm makes its way into western Jefferson County. We've got very heavy rainfall across the western portions of Jefferson County, out towards Valley Station, Greenbelt Highway, Dixie Highway, down towards Fairdale, Jefferson Memorial Forest, up towards Auburndale, Churchill Downs, Shively. At minimum, you're going to see very heavy rain and a lot of lightning. The severe thunderstorm warnings are for that pocket of hail. You see a new severe thunderstorm warning now covers the rest of the metro, the rest of Jefferson County. Let's get that latest severe thunderstorm information. This will go until 8 o'clock this morning. Let's adjust the radar so we can get that more specific information on the new warning that has just been issued. And this is everybody. This is for basically all of Jefferson County. See if we can get it in the right spot so we can get that more specific information for you. There we go. So this is for 60-mile-per-hour winds and observed 1-inch diameter hail. So we're not necessarily looking at ping pong ball size hail or golf ball size hail anymore, but 1-inch diameter hail is quarter size hail, and that's still enough to cause damage. That is severe hail. So for that reason, we'll keep the severe thunderstorm warning in place for the entirety of the metro. All of Jefferson County, also includes the southern half of Oldham County and the western part of Shelby County, Simpsonville primarily, until 8 o'clock this morning. Let's check the velocity, see what kind of wind speeds we might be looking at with this particular storm. There's not much of a tornado threat anymore. And to be quite honest with you, there's not a ton of wind showing up on this particular radar scan. That could still change. We could still see those gusts closer to 50, maybe 60 miles per hour because we have so much wind energy to work with in the atmosphere this morning. That's why we saw numerous strong tornadoes out to our west several hours ago, out across Missouri, Illinois, down into Arkansas. Thankfully, we haven't seen that. The only major damage we've had up until this point was trees and power lines down across DuBois County into parts of Washington County, Indiana. So the wind signature here in western Louisville doesn't look too terribly concerning at this point. But again, there's still that risk at minimum for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, potentially, but mainly hail. I want to draw where that hail core is because it's right over Valley Station, right over the heart of Valley Station in particular. There it is. So in that little zone, it's not much, but there's going to be some larger hailstones, upwards of quarter size, in that portion of western Jefferson County. Let's zoom in real tight, and we'll do kind of street-by-street tracking with this hail core. It's basically between Shively and Valley Station, right over PRP. Here's Cane Run Road, or Greenbelt Highway. There's Cane Run Road. Here's Greenbelt. This is Dixie, and you can see that hail core right over PRP. Just past Greenwood, just crossed over the Ohio River. This will cross Dixie Highway here in the next, I'd say, 2 or 3 minutes. And then it's going to be an issue for places like Auburndale, Iroquois Park. There you see that updated radar scan. That's some larger hail. Now, I will say that hail core might not be quite as intense as it was a few minutes ago, but there could certainly still be some larger hail as this moves through the southern parts of Jefferson County. Here's Taylor Boulevard. Taylor Boulevard becomes New Cut Road. Here's Outer Loop. As we get towards 3rd Street Road, Auburndale, if you live out near that Walmart and off of Outer Loop near New Cut Road, keep that in mind as this severe storm continues to roll through. This is where we're mainly watching for that large hail potential. Just got a report from Clark County a few moments ago of $half size hail. That's a little more than 1 inch in diameter. It's about 1.25 inches. So we'll keep an eye on this hail core moving through Jefferson County. Let's go back to the home view and we'll focus on that second hail core that we're watching in Clark County. Again, if you're just now tuning in, the time now coming up on 7:30, we're still watching this one cluster of severe storms that's right over the most densely populated part of wave country, right over Jefferson County into Clark County, Oldham County, and parts of Shelby County too. So we got that one hail core we were talking about just crossed Dixie Highway in PRP. We've got another hail core that was trying to develop in southern Clark County and has indeed produced upwards of $half size hail just within the last few minutes. So we'll zoom in on this particular hail core. It's right between Clarksville and Charlestown, Clarksville and Sellersburg. This is just north of the Lee Hamilton. Here's the Lee Hamilton. Here's I-65. This is the Salem exit, Highway 160 in Clark County. And where you see those purples, that's where we're going to be tracking that risk for some larger hail. We've had confirmed $half size hail in southern Clark County just in the last few minutes. Another report just came in of quarter and golf ball size hail with this particular portion of the storms in New Albany. That happened just a few moments ago. Now we're starting to get reports of trees down on Rooster Hill Road at Shady Hollow Road in Plattsburgh, Indiana. So these storms, we were hopeful that they would weaken as we got past 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, but unfortunately that has not been the case so far. So here's that hail core right here. This is right over the Prather community. This is Highway 62. This is kind of one of the last exits on 265 as you're coming into Jefferson County. So this will cross the Ohio River very close to where Clark, Oldham, and Jefferson counties all come together. So if you're in Goshen, let's say if you're out towards Buckner, mainly the western and northern parts of Oldham County, pay attention to this. If you live along Highway 42, could see some larger hail here in the next few minutes. River Ridge, a little neighborhood right there on the Ohio River in Clark County. You'll see this large hail at about 6 minutes, closer to 7:37. Then we'll get towards Belknap Beach by 7:41. And eventually Goshen, you could start to see some of this larger hail. Again, should this storm hold together, Goshen, you can see some of that larger hail as we get closer to 7:49 this morning. So that's why we're staying on the air here. Usually we don't stay on the air for severe thunderstorm warnings, but given the fact that we've had confirmed reports of large hail, of quarter-size hail, golf ball size hail, and that is now moving into the city of Louisville, the most populated part of our region. We're going to hang tight on the air here for just a few minutes as these storms roll through Jefferson County, Clark County, Oldham County, into parts of Shelby County too. Let's see, getting some reports, vague reports of high winds and hail in Corydon. That's not surprising. The severe storm rolled through Corydon about 30 minutes ago. Thankfully, there's no reports of damage from this hail or from this high wind, at least in Harrison County in particular. So this is the only show we have in Wave Country when it comes to severe storms. It's the only group of severe thunderstorm warnings we have. Again, the expiration times are a little different depending on which part of the storm we're looking at, but in general, we'll have these severe storm warnings in place until 7:45 and 8 o'clock this morning. So we'll zoom back in. Another report of upwards of golf ball size hail in New Albany just a few minutes ago. Wow. So we've got two distinct cores of very large hail. I'll draw those out for you here, and then we'll take a look at a couple of our SkyTrack cameras across the region. So here's where those two hail cores are. There's one right over Prospect. We're about to move into Prospect, crossing the Ohio River now. If you're in Prospect, get ready for some larger hail. We've got a second hail core that's right over, I'll say, Southern Parkway in Jefferson County. So just south of the Watterson, there's the expressway right there. Right through here is Southern Parkway. So Auburndale, if you live near the airport, you live across from U of L, across from L&N Stadium, you're likely seeing some larger hail. And both of these hail cores in general are kind of moving off to the east and northeast. So for this first hail core, Goshen up towards LaGrange, maybe even Buckner, that's where we'll have to watch for that larger hail in the next 15 to 20 minutes. This hail core in South Louisville is going to be more of an issue, let's say, for Preston Highway north of Okolona. So as you're going north on Preston Highway up towards the airport, up towards Male High School, then getting across Bardstown Road, let's say right where the Highlands and Fern Creek, kind of that border between those two neighborhoods in town. J-Town, Middletown, Eastwood, you could be next in line to see some of that larger hail as well. So to recap, we're on the air here for some larger hail that has been confirmed making its way through parts of Metro Louisville. The severe thunderstorm warning for Jefferson County goes until 8 a.m. This severe thunderstorm warning to the north for a chunk of Oldham County, southern Clark County, that technically goes until 7:45. But if these hail cores continue to show up and stay rather intense, we'll likely see these severe thunderstorm warnings extended. And we've been talking a lot about hail. We can't forget the damaging winds. We just got a report as this severe storm right here was moving over Muhammad Ali International Airport. We have a confirmed report of 69-mile-per-hour wind gust with this portion of the severe storm that just crossed over Louisville International Airport. That's significant damaging wind gust. That will cause widespread wind damage potentially in this portion of the line of storms. So let's say from the Highlands down towards Fern Creek, J-Town, Middletown. If you live along Shelbyville Road, St. Matthews, Linden, along the Watterson from I-65 up to I-71. This portion of the line has confirmed now damaging wind gust upwards of 60 to 70 miles per hour. Let's put a track on these storms as they continue to move east, heading towards the eastern parts of the metro. I'll focus on where that most intense wind and hail is at the moment. And these storms are moving slower than they were earlier this morning, but they're still moving at a decent clip, upwards 40 to 50 miles per hour. So if you live near Seneca High School, 741, get ready for heavy rain, damaging winds, perhaps some larger hail if you live near Seneca High School in the next 5 minutes. J-Town, 747. That's when this storm arrives. Middletown, 751. Eastwood, 757. And then eventually into Simpsonville as we get towards 8:05 on this Saturday morning. So the worst of the weather is moving out of western Jefferson County. Still a few showers. Let's see up towards the Portland neighborhood, Shively. Another shower developing in Harrison County. That's not a big deal. We're going to focus on areas east of I-65 now, which have been relatively quiet throughout most of the morning. If you've been watching us throughout the night and into this morning, most of the action has been west of I-65 across southern Indiana. Now what's left of these severe storms pushing east and still holding on. Again, we were optimistic that these storms would weaken by the time they got to I-65. Quite honestly, it's been the opposite. These storms have re-intensified over the last 30 minutes or an hour and are causing significant issues in their wake. Updating the severe thunderstorm warning, this northern portion of the warning for eastern Clark County, northern Oldham County for 60-mile-per-hour wind gust and potentially some golf ball size hail. We haven't seen many reports in the last few minutes of larger hail, but where you see those purples on radar, that's where we have that risk for some larger hail. It's right on top of Goshen. If you live in Goshen, hunker down for a few minutes as this larger hail moves through. These storms are still moving very, very quickly, not as quickly as this morning, but still 40 or 50 miles per hour to the east. So let's adjust this radar one more time. And again, the worst of the hail has moved out of Goshen. It's moving out now. This purple area is where that large hail is falling, basically along Highway 42, up towards Sunset Village, Rolling Hills in Clark County, east of Goshen. This is going to be just north of Buckner. The worst of the hail is going to be north of Buckner, but still very strong wind gusts, upwards of 60 miles per hour potentially. And certainly still that risk for quarter to maybe golf ball size hail. That's one portion of this line of storms we're watching. Let's pan things down to the south. I'll show you where that second round is moving through. And again, these storms are still moving at a pretty good clip. We'll stop the radar so I can tell you where those storms are as we speak. Again, this is crossed I-65. The worst of it is right over Seneca High School. Here's Bardstown Road. This is Fern Valley Road. Fern Valley, of course, becomes Hirschborn Parkway as you get into the east end. Here's Taylorsville Road. So if you live along Taylorsville Road between, well, let's just say the Watterson and the Snyder up towards J-Town, you're next in line to see the damaging wind gusts and large hail. I would not be surprised if we start getting reports of power outages over the next few moments as well. The Weather Service still keeping this severe thunderstorm warning in place until 8 o'clock for 70-mile-per-hour winds, which we just had confirmed at Ali International Airport, and perhaps some larger hail as well. Let's track the hail core in particular, because that's where we're going to have kind of a double threat, if you will, with large hail and perhaps those 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. So this is kind of a smaller storm track, but you get the idea. If you live in the Houston Acres neighborhood or the Hirschborn Acres neighborhood, I'd say in the next 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to be seeing that threat for larger hail and damaging winds. Douglas Hills, 803. That's when large hail, damaging winds moves into your neighborhood. Middletown as we get towards 808. This storm should be, by and large, out of Jefferson County, I'd say by 8:15. Then it'll become an issue for the rest of Oldham County and eventually into Shelby County as well. That's the live view of downtown Louisville this morning. The worst of the storms have moved out of downtown, but we understand the Louisville 10K, the second jewel in the Triple Crown of running, was supposed to get underway about 10 minutes ago at 7:30. I certainly hope they stopped those activities here in downtown and let these storms roll through. If I can ask somebody in the control room to kind of check in on that Louisville 10K, make sure everybody was hunkered down, and if we can give an update on the status of that race for the rest of this morning, let us know. Let's go back to the radar. And again, these are the only severe storms we're tracking at this hour. Severe thunderstorm warning for Jefferson County goes until 8 o'clock. Western Shelby County, that warning also goes until 8. Looks like that northern severe thunderstorm warning has just been extended. So we'll take a look at the newest information on that severe thunderstorm. And we'll pan the radar just a little bit so we can give you that information. A lot of times when you have so many warnings close to each other, the map might pick the wrong warning to display. So here's the newest information, the newest severe thunderstorm warning. This is for the northern half of Oldham County, the southern part of Trimble County. Trimble County, we haven't talked a lot about you guys this morning because, well, things have been pretty quiet in Trimble County. But from Bedford Point south, we have a new severe thunderstorm warning in place. A new warning also includes northern Henry County, Campbellsburg, out towards Pendleton, Newcastle. You're under this new severe thunderstorm warning. This is not an issue for Eminence at this point. Eminence, still keep your guard up, but no warning for that part of Henry County at this point. So this new warning lasts until 8:15. Same threats as we've been talking about. 60 mile per hour wind gust, 1.5 inch diameter hail. That's ping pong ball size hail. And notice It's been confirmed. It's been observed. And as we've been rattling off these reports over the last 20 minutes since we came on the air, we've had many reports of damaging wind gusts and large hail. Let's see, getting a few photos coming into the National Weather Service chat of some dime-sized hail in Lanesville, Indiana as these storms rolled through earlier this morning. Back to the big picture, this cluster of storms is the only activity that's severe, but we need to keep an eye on this stuff off to the west as well. Severe weather threat? Not necessarily, but heavy rain and storms redeveloping in the spots that saw heavy rain and severe storms earlier this morning around 3, 4, 5 o'clock. So if you're watching us in Jasper, Du Bois County, heavy rain and storms continue. Northern Orange County up towards French Lick, southern Lawrence County, Indiana, into Bedford. We'll continue to watch those storms as the morning unfolds, but let's focus back in on the metro, because that's where most of you are watching us this morning, and that's where the most significant severe weather is taking place. So the worst of the severe weather now moving past Bardstown Road, now moving past the Highlands and Newburgh and Okolona. We've got very large hail potentially falling right along I-64 between the Watterson and the Snyder. This is 64. Here's J-Town. Hirschhorn Parkway's right about here. Here's Blakenbaker. This is Shelbyville Road. So Douglas Hills, J-Town, Hirschhorn Acres, Middletown, Eastwood. Get inside. Do you have to go to your tornado safe place? No, not necessarily. There's no tornado threat at this point, but there are damaging straight line winds over 60 miles per hour, and there have been numerous reports of large hail. And these storms, they look rather small, right? But they are mighty. They have been packing a punch all morning long. Let's do another storm track as this storm keeps racing. I mean, just racing off to the east. This is going to be an issue for Shelby County towards the top of the hour. Middletown, you'll see the worst of this in about 3 minutes, closer to 7:47. Eastwood, 7:54. Long Run, out towards Long Run Park, out near Valhalla by 7:58. Then towards the Connor community, just past 8:01 or just past the top of the hour. Simpsonville will start to see the impacts from this severe storm by 8:05. Again, it's 7:44. I'm meteorologist Carson Meredith. We're still tracking severe weather across Wave Country this morning, the first of what could be 2 rounds of severe weather as we go through the rest of the day today. Again, we were hopeful these storms would weaken by the time we got to 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, but so far that has not been the case. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue for eastern Jefferson County, basically all of Oldham County, as well as Trumbull and Henry counties for the next half hour or so. New report coming in now out of Oldham County near the Skylight community of ping pong ball size hail. So we'll go back to that second hail core that we're watching in Oldham County. And there's a lot more purples on the map than what we had a couple of minutes ago. There's Skylight. Skylight, you saw ping pong ball size hail about 5 minutes ago. So there is very likely some large damaging hail moving through the northern parts of Oldham County. Here's the community of Oldham in Oldham County. There's Greenhaven. If you're near LaGrange, it's going to be a close call. I think the worst of the hail will go just north of downtown LaGrange, but it's too close. So get inside. Quite honestly, it's too late to cover up the cars if they're exposed to the elements this morning. So that core of hail has a confirmed history producing large hail, 1.5 inches in diameter. That's one hail core we're watching. Not necessarily an issue for Buckner or Crestwood. Crestwood, Buckner, you're still seeing extremely heavy rain, a lot of lightning, perhaps some gusty winds. But the hail core is just to the north, up there near the Oldham community in Greenhaven. Let me circle it to show you more specifically the area we're talking about. And there it is. So some very large hail falling in northern Oldham County at the moment. Now we will go back to Jefferson County. That hail core doesn't look quite as impressive. Not seeing quite as much purple on radar, but still at bare minimum, torrential rain moving through J-Town, moving through Middletown, moving near Woodland Hills, Eastwood. There could still be some hailstones in that picture as well. If you're west of, let's say west of Linden, west of St. Matthews, things are calming down at the moment. This is mainly an eastern Jefferson County issue now. I don't like this appendage on this storm that's trying to develop. Let's make sure there's no rotation. There shouldn't be. The environment's not quite as conducive for tornadic activity at the moment. The winds look quite noisy. You're looking for bright reds and bright greens next to each other, and yeah, you see bright reds and bright greens, but it's not necessarily indicating rotation at this point. So the time now is 7:47. We'll zoom things out one more time, and we'll go back to the normal radar view. And this is kind of the last bit of our first round of severe weather today. Moved through a couple of hours late, but they haven't quite weakened just yet. We were hopeful that most of the severe weather threat would be done this morning around 7 or 8 o'clock. Well, here we are closing in on 8 o'clock, and some of those storms are still packing quite a punch. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue for Jefferson County, Oldham County, Trimble, and Henry counties. The Jefferson County warning expires at the top of the hour, and the warning for Oldham, Trimble, and Henry County goes until 8:15. You can see that information still scrolling at the bottom of your screen. We'll keep an eye on this heavier rain up towards Jasper into southern Lawrence County as well. None of that activity is severe. New report from a National Weather Service employee 2 miles west of Middletown of quarter-size hail. So we still have some larger hail with this particular storm in the metro, in the east end of Louisville. So we'll zoom back in on that. And we're just going to kind of bounce around these two lines or these two pockets of severe storms with large hail. We'll pan the radar just a little bit. And you still see that pocket of purple. That is where we're seeing some of the larger hail. And these storms are moving rather quickly. So the worst of the hail has crossed the Snyder Freeway. This is in far northeastern Jefferson County. This is out near Long Run Park. If you're familiar with that part of town, Flat Rock Road. This is close to Valhalla Golf Club at the moment. Torrential rain, a lot of lightning. Potential for 60-mile-per-hour wind gust is still there, and perhaps some larger hailstones too. That heavy rain continues along the Snyder, let's say from LaGrange Road all the way down to Taylorsville Road. But again, these storms are still moving at a decent clip, maybe not quite as quickly as they were moving earlier this morning, but they're still causing some issues as they move through areas east of I-65 at the moment. Let's see, a couple more reports of some larger hail in Georgetown, Indiana, or earlier this morning, likely from these storms that have rolled through. So we're going to keep watching these storms that continue to push east. Let me step out of the shot just for a second. We'll leave radar up. The severe thunderstorm warnings continue for Jefferson County, for pretty much all of Oldham County, as well as Henry and Trimble County. And let's see, getting reports in East Louisville of heavy quarter-size hail. So that's the kind of hail, folks, that could actually accumulate, if you could believe that. So we'll keep watching these. Let me pick a different way to show you guys the hail as it continues to move through. So bear with me here for just a moment. We'll get the hail scope, and you can kind of see those two pockets of larger hail as we zoom in a little bit tighter. One of which is right over Middletown, and there's the other near Greenhaven in Oldham County. So there's one hail core. Here's another one. And these two have been the two hail cores that have caused the issues so far this morning. Getting several photos of 2-inch hail. Goodness gracious, 2-inch diameter hail in Charlestown just a few minutes ago. Wow, that is impressive hail moved through Charlestown a few moments ago. So the severe thunderstorm warning continues until 8 o'clock this morning for Jefferson County, and until 8:15, we'll just keep it simple until 8:15 for Oldham, Henry, and Trimble counties. So again, we're just going to hang on the air here. We're supposed to start our 8 o'clock newscast at the top of the hour. So we'll just sit tight and watch these storms continue to roll through. I will say the hail cores are a little weaker than they were earlier, but there's certainly still the risk for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and that's something we also need to keep in mind. At Ollie International Airport, as these storms rolled through about 20 or 30 minutes ago, had confirmed 69-mile-per-hour wind gust. That's very strong wind gusts. We don't see that very often, especially at Ollie International. Marble-sized hail reported in far northern Oldham County. A few pockets of quarter-size hail, but mostly marble-size. Now, marble-size hail is not severe. It's much, much smaller, as you might expect. But there's still some pockets of quarter-size hail. What that tells me is these hail cores are weakening as they continue to push east, but they could still cause some damage. We've had reports of upwards of 2-inch diameter hail as these storms rolled through the Charlestown area near I-65 and the Lee Hamilton Freeway earlier this morning. More late hail reports coming in out of Jeffersonville. So these storms certainly did not want to go away easy this morning. And remember, we still have that second round of storms on the way later on this afternoon. We're talking between 1 o'clock and 8 p.m. Now, I will say the greater threat for that is going to be heavy rain. But if we get enough clearing in the cloud cover over the next few hours, we're going to get more instability. We're going to get more storm fuel. That could set the stage for maybe another round of stronger storms later on. But this is our main focus right now. And for planning purposes in the building, we're going to sign off. Control room, if you can tell me a good out time for us to take a quick break before we start our 8 a.m. newscast, let me know. And we'll take a quick commercial break. We'll hit a reset button, and we'll come back with more weather coverage when we start our 8 a.m. newscast here in just a few minutes. So again, we still have these severe thunderstorm warnings. Okay, thank you guys, appreciate it. So again, we're still watching these two pockets of severe storms, if you will. Yes, it's a bigger line of storms, but there's only two main areas we're focusing on, one of which is starting to move out of the metro. Still some very heavy rain in Eastwood, right along Shelbyville Road, but that should be out of Jefferson County really in the next couple of minutes. We got a couple minutes left here, so we'll do one more wide view, and then we'll take a quick break before we begin, that is, our 8 a.m. newscast. Only severe weather at this time is for eastern Jefferson County, Oldham County, Trimble, and Henry County. So those severe thunderstorm warnings continue for a few more minutes. This severe thunderstorm warning for Louisville will expire at the top of the hour, although we may get a new warning further to the east. And we still have the severe thunderstorm warning for northern Oldham County, southern Trimble County, and northern Henry County until 8:15. So we still have those two severe thunderstorm warnings. The hail cores not looking quite as intense as they were earlier, but they could still produce damaging wind gusts, maybe some smaller hail. So not necessarily the quarter to golf ball size hail that we had earlier, but still perhaps a marble or dime size hail. Those are the only severe storms we have. We're keeping an eye on this cluster of severe storms. Forgive me, let's draw those out for you. We're watching these new storms that have redeveloped in the northwestern parts of Wave Country. Du Bois County, heading into Lawrence County, western Jackson County. Those storms still continue. Not severe, but we'll keep an eye on them as we go through the rest of this morning and into the afternoon. So for most of us, we're really quieting things down, but we'll still keep an eye on these severe storms basically along the I-71 corridor as we go through the rest of this morning. We're going to take a quick commercial break, reset, get ready for our newscast. We're going to send crews out across the metro, southern Indiana, looking for that hail damage, looking for that wind damage as those storms moved through a little while ago. And we'll have a full update on continuing updates throughout the day.